All right. On a hanging hunt, Abe, besides the normal debris that you normally have, your rangefinder, all the stuff that you have just for hunting in general, what is one item you make sure you have?
I mean, binoculars doesn't count, right? Because we already have that.
I make sure I have those no matter what.
Yeah.
What's something a little bit out of the norm?
A backup for my phone, so I could keep playing games.
Candy Crush
in the stand.
There you go.
I'm gonna say I don't know. Everything I've stripped everything down so much that it's like it's bare necessities.
I would say a backup battery. You were kind of on something there. If you're going to do an all-day sit and
yeah,
you kind of find yourself in a position where you're killing time in the middle of the day reading a book on your phone or whatever you do, and can run down the battery life.
Yeah, that's true. I think I'm going to go extra battery. I'm going to steal mine that you stole from me.
I would say mine was, and I talked about this on the podcast a long time ago, but it was a tarp, just like a real lightweight tarp that you can, whenever you do shoot your deer, that you're not just rubbing it in the dirt while you're trying to gut it out. You can actually put it on something that's a membrane between the dirt and the deer, and it just keeps it so much cleaner rather than trying to use the deer skin itself as your tarp, quote unquote. Yeah.
It's a good idea, tarp.
The brand's a tarp. What would you say yours was?
An extra battery.
An extra battery?
Like cell phone charger battery.
I think one I really like to bring is paracord.
Paracord.
I know that's something that people always say, but man, it seems like every time I go out on any kind of hunt, there's always something I use paracord for.
Yep.
Tie up something.
I've tied limbs back.
Yeah,
shooting lanes.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You can tie them up to you to kind of give you a little more cover.
Yeah.
I think today we're going to talk about maybe not really needing to do that all that much, to give you some extra cover.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Isaac.
So am I still in the hypothetical?
Yeah, you're still in the hypothetical.
All right.
You're on the hot seat, man.
All right, so I know you already kind of discounted the idea of stuff that you're always going to have, but mine's a little weird because I always carry an extra release because you never freaking know when you're going to drop it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So every piece of my gear, any different way that I have set up to go out has a release in it.
Interesting.
How many times have you been to the tree and you're 2.5 miles back and you've kayaked forever and all of a sudden you realize, well,
shit,
crap, I've got
That
no
was it on the
release.
tailgate.
So one time, we did this on a duck hunt. We're in the boat. We're going out. We're already almost out there. We're running a little bit late, too.
Yep.
We're almost to the spot we wanted to be in, and every single one of us forgot duck calls, except for the one guy who's not as much of a duck hunter as the rest of us.
Who is a straight-up god-awful duck caller. I'm better now, but only through attrition of you forgetting your calls and just doing it all summer. All.
That's right. You
all
can't be
season.
as bad on a duck call as I am on a reed call.
Dude, I had somebody try to fight me because I was so bad. Legit.
From across the pond? Or
Was
in your own hunting group?
shut the fuck up. You sound like shit. If you got a problem with it, meet me at the boat ramp. Legit the words that they used.
Yeah. At first we thought it was funny.
And they were kind of like, what the fuck, man?
And it was funny to us, not really to Abe. Me and Grinch
like,
were laughing pretty hard.
That's what sitting back for YouTube's for. Just hit it on repeat. Just keep playing it back. You're going to look like an idiot, duck calling to your TV screen. But
Well, I roll with duck calls in my truck right now, and every single day on the way to work. I did that more during turkey season than I did the turkey call.
Right.
And I was like, they won't call on public land anyways. So you are the first person we've had on our podcast, at least I feel like, who is ever a hardcore, legit tree saddle hunter. And our crew has been flirting with this for
A while now.
2 years,
Yeah.
I think, about whether we want to do this. Is it going to work? How does it work? What do you need? What do you not need? And so we're super glad to have you on the podcast to kind of straighten us out.
well, it's nice to be on.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody close podcasted, so I've been involved with a lot of the saddle hunter meetups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But all of them have a lot bigger names and don't need me.
Yeah. Well,
So-
we don't have very big names, and we need you. So.
It's nice to
So
feel
welcome
needed in a room
opposite
for
attract.
once. I guess probably the biggest question is the one you touched on, which is what all do you need?
Yeah.
And the answer is not much. Like,
Sure. I mean, you have what seems like a pretty.
I have most of my
simple
setup
setup
here,
here.
that even without a backpack, I forgot to bring even a shopping sack to put all this in, but I carried it all in one hand.
Yeah.
So I guess the first thing you need right off the bat if you're saddle hunting is obviously a saddle. And this is a really good time right now to be in saddle hunting because you don't have to make your own shit out of stuff that it's not intended to be used
Yeah.
as. So when I got into it, like my saddle here is technically not even supposed to be used above ground level, the original product that it was. And what it was is, I mean, the guy's a genius. It's called a sit and drag. And he designed it to be like a run and gun, like put a little tether around the tree. It was all one piece, and it was a little cumbersome. But basically what it was like a piece of webbing that had an eye sewn in it, and you'd put that around the tree and slide this whole contraption in, and you'd sit in it with your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Your back against the tree to turkey hunt or deer hunt or whatever. But it gave you, if you had a tree that was thick enough to hold your weight, you had a place to sit down. You didn't have to carry a chair or a stand or a blind or something with you. And a lot of us on Saddle Hunter just ripped them to shreds and sewn a waist belt, sewed a 2-inch webbing waist belt in there and just put a weight bearing clip on it. And my biggest problem is I love all the new saddles that are out.
See it?
Yeah, go for it. And I am one rope, so I've got basically one lineman's belt in there. And I would run with a second, which would be my tether. And the way I run them is they're both the same rope. So if I need to cross a limb or something, I've got a second rope I can hook above it and never come unhooked from the tree. And I think that's something that was a big part of me switching to a saddle is by the nature of how this works, you're never not hooked in. There's no point where, like when I was in my Lone Wolf, I did some really stupid shit.
Oh my god!
Oh, yeah.
Like there were times that I'm like, I get all, everybody has a different setup, but when you're in thick brush, like we have down here, trees are really low. Our canopy starts at 10, 12 feet, and you're dodging limbs the whole way up. So I'd go up, if it wasn't a clean tree, I'd go up with all my sticks. I'd come back down, I'd grab my Lone Wolf, and then I'd go back up.
Yeah.
Well, I used a lineman's belt on the way up because you're leaning weird ways, you're hanging sticks. But it never fails on your way back down to grab the stand. You go back up without a lineman's belt on.
Yeah.
I mean, what would have happened? I mean, I had a buddy, one of my hunting buddies, just took a fall this last fall. He uses his saddle out in Colorado elk hunting and has for 15 years in the pine trees out there.
Yeah.
And he said the same thing. He's like, I've been climbing pine trees for years. I didn't even think about putting my lineman's belt on. He's like, I started climbing limbs and one of them broke. And he busted a couple ribs on the way down.
Dude, it terrifies me to think about falling.
Dude, and that's
right?
best case scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the biggest thing. Another thing is I've got some pretty gnarly back problems.
Okay.
Like I've got 2 slip discs, one in my neck, one like right above my hips.
Oh, shit.
And then I've got, because of that, I've got scoliosis between them, like where my muscles are trying to protect those. They're like twisting my spine. So sitting in a regular stand is, I'm good for about 2.5 hours, maybe 3. And then it's like excruciating. Like it gets to the point where I'll have big knots, like almost like a fist rolled up underneath my skin. And this is the way I use a saddle. There's a couple different ways. A lot of guys love to sit in them, and I lean in them. So I'm primarily standing, leaning into the saddle that supports me.
On your platform?
Yeah, either on a platform or a ring of steps or on the top of my sticks. If I'm in a real tight tree, like I love getting into cedar trees because you're never going to be seen. And I literally can get in a cedar tree and shoot. Cedars, I can probably shoot, 180 degrees, 160 degrees out of them. Most other trees, I can shoot pretty much 360.
It's all right. You keep going.
All right.
I don't know what that is.
But, so, it was really the 2 things. One was always being hooked in, and the second one was it got to where I could literally sit all day because, when you're leaning against a bar stool or a bar countertop, you can barely move, and you completely change the muscles that are supporting you. 100%. Like, flex your calf a little bit, and it completely changes how the weight distributes across your whole body. So with almost no movement, I can make sure that none of my muscles get fatigued at all in the tree.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is, 5 inches of fabric around my waist, and I can sit. I have literally done 60% of my sits last year were dawn to dusk
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
with nothing in between, like not coming down, not nothing.
Huh.
You know,
Wow.
I mean that's crazy,
Yeah. I mean, it's
but
still
you know,
it's the way to get it done. You know.
yeah. And a lot of that was I got in
Wow.
somewhere and expected, forecasted winds were supposed to shift out of a different direction, and I'd had a tree close by that might work out. All of a sudden, the winds didn't shift, and I felt like that was still my
Your best bet.
my highest chance spot to be.
Yeah.
You know,
So let's take a step back real fast and let's just kind of talk about your public hunting. So you're obviously here in Texas. Are you from Texas or?
I am. I
Yeah.
grew up a little town right up along the Red River called Bonham,
Okay.
east of Sherman,
Yep.
west of
Yep.
Paris, kind of
Yep.
halfway between. I grew up hunting private.
Okay.
And,
like most of us.
Yeah, when I turned 10, my dad got us on a lease out in north of St. Joe in Montague County,
Mm-hmm.
and then we went out West Texas and hunted over corn, and that was fun. But I mean, it's West Texas; it was flat.
Yeah.
If you weren't 15 feet up in the air in a box, you couldn't see anything because
Yeah.
Yep.
everything was mesquite trees. And I don't know, I kind of got bored with it and went on to college and career and
Girls.
yeah.
Yeah.
And got married, got a stepson now, and all of a sudden,
Now it's time to go back to hunting.
it's time to go back to hunting. But
That's right.
man, leases are a lot more expensive than they were 15 years ago.
Yep.
That's
So
why we do what we do, man. Because
Yeah.
it's like,
The ranch we just got in Oklahoma, the leasers that were on that before us were paying $10,000 a year for that 400 something acres, I think.
I mean, it's just too much money. You
Yeah.
know, I've got so many other things that I'd rather do. If I did that, then that's all I'm going to do.
Yeah.
All I
Right.
get to do is deer hunt there,
Yeah.
and that's it. And even then, it's like I still wouldn't be able to afford that, you know.
Yeah.
But running and gunning on public land, and I get to duck hunt, I get to fish, I get to turkey hunt, I get to go to elk hunt, I go to mule deer hunt, and without public land, that would be impossible.
I tell you what, though, it's a learning curve here in Texas.
Oh my
Oh,
God, yeah.
It's I hear a lot of guys, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Dan Infault on the Beast.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
I've been up and done some scouting with him. Me and one of my hunting buddies went up, and just the two of us with him for the whole weekend.
Oh wow.
Split it 50-50 just to kind of get the experience. And man, I mean, these guys are phenomenal hunters. A lot of these people I've talked to.
Yeah.
John Eberhart and him, and a lot of the guys that go to the saddle hunter meetups or big YouTube channels that everybody know.
Yeah.
And I really do think a lot of them would probably struggle here in Texas. And it's not. I don't think that our deer are smarter.
No.
I think it's that a lot of those guys are hunting in areas where, there's a lot of pressure.
Sure.
Michigan and Wisconsin, there's a lot of guys on public land. But number one, you got a lot more public land per capita.
Yeah.
And number two, you're not running with 2.5 or 3 deer per square mile like we are here.
Yeah.
They're running 15, 18, 20 deer per square mile.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're running 5 times the number of deer per acre, you can make a lot of mistakes and still be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be completely honest. Your first 2 years on public land in Texas, if you're not hunting heavy in archery season, just assume you may not get something.
I mean, for the first 2 years that I hunted public land, I didn't even see a deer.
Yeah.
I mean, it took until like going into my 3rd year before the season to see deer.
I got a whole bunch on camera.
Well,
Yeah.
Exactly. I had
That's
them on
where
camera.
that's where we were at. We
Yeah.
had giants on some
Oh,
of our
yeah.
cameras.
And the biggest problem is I had a lot of opportunities where I could have easily shot something, but with our antler restrictions,
Yeah.
it's I had my first 3 seasons public. I wasn't hunting Oklahoma yet, and all 3 seasons I had a deer that, looking back after getting pictures after the fact, that were legal, but I couldn't trust that they were legal
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
stand.
Yeah.
And I'm not about to shoot something and lose a license for 5 years or have somebody call me a poacher
Yeah.
for a half an inch
Yeah.
inside spread difference. So I let deer walk that I shouldn't have walked. And
Yeah.
I also had this. It was right as I was getting in. It's a big movement now about shooting only mature deer.
Yeah.
Upper age class, and I thought I could just roll into public land and just start doing that from day one. And I let some deer walk that I knew were legal that I just should have shot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
if it's legal, get it on the ground in public land. You got to have some deer under your belt.
Yep.
I mean, that's I will shoot the first legal deer that walks past,
Yeah.
on public land. This is not like a place where you're like, oh, well, we're going to let these, it's impossible to get a mature age class on a public land.
Yeah, see, and I said that this year, and then I rolled off, and I didn't expect to hunt like the first 2 weeks of October, and my schedule cleared up. So like October 1, which was opening day in Oklahoma, I borrowed a buddy's kayak and kayaked into this spot that I'd picked out on a map and hadn't seen in 3 years, and I was like, it might be okay. And I get up there, and I'm just covered up in does.
Yeah.
So I was
Nice.
like, I'll just wait.
Yeah.
And then that kind of set me up for failure because it took until the last week of November in the rut to get a deer on the ground after that.
Yep.
Just like anything else, the cacophony of stupid stuff.
Just happens.
Moving at the wrong time and getting picked, or having a deer roll out at 45 or 50 instead of 25. You know, all kinds of stuff.
So, obviously we're going to talk a lot about tree saddles today, but I really love just like talking to people who public land hunt, especially in the state of Texas, because like what you said earlier, where you got these dudes who are they're badasses, right? But you roll down here, and I just don't think it's a different ball game.
It's 65 degrees October 1 up there.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think a big difference.
95 here.
Yeah, I think a big difference is we look at them like they're awesome because the top 15% of the deer population that they're pulling in are 180s, 170s, 160s. On our public land, of the deer that you're going to actually possibly see in daylight, our top 15% might be 125, 120.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, we've got guys here that would never have a name in the industry that are just stone cold killers.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
But they're just solidly in that 125 to 135 mark.
Which are studs,
They're
right?
studs on public land, but a lot of people don't consider a 135 to be a stud.
Yeah. I don't know. I consider it, Spike to be a stud at this point.
Yeah, I'm getting. It doesn't take much for me to like a deer anymore.
Yeah.
It's honestly, last year I actually kept up with this last season between scouting in the spring, right after, because I scout starting the day after season closes. It's my favorite time to start scouting. It's cold, everything's dropped, sign from last year still on the ground. So I put in more hours in January and February and early March.
Yeah.
Than I do any other time of the year.
And you don't have to worry about getting bit by a snake.
Right, except for sitting in the stand,
Yeah.
And so between all of that and all of my hunting in October and November and December, I ended up putting in like 190 miles for the buck that I shot this year.
Oh, wow.
I don't care how small he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a frickin' trophy.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of that I'd have been doing a whole bunch of hiking and fishing and stuff anyways.
But still.
You definitely
Right.
learn to appreciate it way more.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what are just good solid advice if you were talking to somebody new, new to the game?
Be humble from the start.
Yeah.
I don't care how decent of a hunter you think you are growing up on private land. Public is an entirely different world.
Yeah.
The best way I can describe it is on public, typically, at least in Texas, because a lot of them are fragmented pieces. You think of Lyndon B. Johnson grasslands.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those units are 190 acres, 200 acres, and then it's completely surrounded on four sides by private. So a lot of our stuff is very fragmented here in Texas. So you've got really two scenarios. You got either the bucks are bedding on private land, and they're coming into the public at night to eat, or they're bedding on the public land, and they're moving into the private land at night to eat.
Yeah.
And you're going to make some mistakes. If you're not busting deer out of beds on your way into places, you're not aggressive enough.
Yeah.
Because you may only have, I've had deer that I knew exactly where they were bedded. On this wind, I've probably got a 65% chance of him being in this 5 square feet.
Yeah.
And move in and only be 55, 60 yards from him in a tree. And he still doesn't make it to me by the end of dark.
It
just doesn't move that far.
Yeah.
He'll stand up, walk around,
There's some
browse a little bit.
great footage by the hunting public guys where they put a trail cam up over a known buck bed and then buck just sitting there. It's like 4 hours just.
Yeah, and they won't leave 100 feet of that bed until they feel comfortable. But think about it. If everything in the woods was trying to kill me, I'd be pretty conservative too.
Cautious on where I went.
So if a lot of guys just get really scared of jumping deer during season. Nobody really thinks anything of it out of season, but they really get scared of jumping deer in season. But that just tells you you're in the game.
Yeah.
Pay attention when you jump a deer. That makes a whole lot of difference. And jumping a doe is not a small thing either. You get an area where you're comfortable walking through and you've got a fairly decent chance of jumping a doe, you need to really pay attention. That's a doe bedding area.
Yeah.
You come into late October, mid-November, you need to be somewhere near there.
Yeah.
Because
couldn't
you know
agree more.
that's a destination they're coming.
Yeah.
So I mark very specifically
Well,
when I jump deer.
yeah.
If I get any kind of a vision on the head, and I can tell doe or buck, I very specifically mark the gender, because if I
Yeah.
jump does again there later on, it's now on my radar.
Yeah.
This buck only was shot because on the way out, I saw a doe one day, and then a couple days later, I jumped a buck with a doe bedded down. And then I said, this is special. And then all I did was I just walked in 150 yards, and on the first sit,
Yeah.
which is all we all know is the best time to be in the tree. The first sit is your
Yep.
best opportunity.
Yeah.
That happens.
I have set, last year I set the same tree, I set one tree twice, and no
Yeah.
other tree I set the whole season had I set before.
So like,
Yeah.
as far as that goes, right? Are you changing? How far are you making a move from? Right. So is it like from tree that's 5 yards, 10-yard difference? Are we talking?
it all depends on wind, and it depends on, like, if I don't run a lot of trail cameras. I've got 5 total. One of them right now is on a small little 40-acre piece of family land that,
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I've had a feeder on it since the day after season closes, and I checked it a week and a half ago. I still don't have a picture of deer.
Wow.
Pigs, though, I bet.
Right. So basically, I haven't even had pigs on it yet.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So basically, I have 4 cameras to cover. I was doing the math not too long ago, and I'll put anything with about 2.5 hours in my house, 2.5 hours of Denton,
Yeah.
in my bailiwick that I've got a lot of scout time on it.
Yeah.
And so I mean that's like 100,000 acres for 4
Yeah.
cameras. So I'm typically going in based on sign, and I mean you can do a lot of discussion on that. I don't look at the big diameter of a rub. It
Yeah.
doesn't impress me at all, because I've seen some really small bucks tear up some really big cedar trees.
Yeah.
I look at height.
That's
So,
the thing I learned this year.
The
was
higher
height.
the higher that rub is, the more impressed
Yeah.
that I am. And the more time you spend in the woods, you'll start figuring out that there are just some spots that are the ground to have. Even
Yeah.
if you've never had a deer there, you've not busted a deer, you've not had it on camera, you can just get to a point where you look at something and you can realize, all right, there's food over there, there's food over to the west, there's girls to the south.
Yeah.
The way the land's shaped, all the smell from, on a warm day, all the scent's going to come up the hill right to him. You
Yeah.
can look down at anything coming at him, nothing can come behind him.
Yeah.
And you just kind of figure out there's areas to be. And if the sign's not fairly close to something I consider mature buck bedding, it's not all that important to me, because it could have been late at midnight.
Yeah.
It could have been late at 1 a.m. And that stuff doesn't mean anything. I mean, everybody's always seen that massive rub or huge scrape 60 yards from the parking lot. There's
Walking
deer are
down
definitely
the trail, walking
Yeah.
down the trail at Hugo is just
Yeah.
deer are definitely there. They're just not there in daylight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, those are probably the biggest things that I key in on, is where and how often and consistently I jump deer, and then the difference between daylight buck sign and nighttime buck sign, and how high those rubs are, is really what gets. So a lot of times I've never seen the deer that walks in the area.
Yeah.
I may throw something. He may be the dominant deer, and he may walk by and be 10 inches wide,
Yeah.
and I can't shoot him. So.
The AR rule. No fun.
Yep. Gotta
So-
love those antler restrictions.
As far as, and we'll get to I keep saying this, but I just love picking your brain about public land hunting. As far as like looking at e-scouting, like what do you going to look at first? If you pull up like a Google Maps or an Onyx or something like that, what are you looking at first, and what are you crossing off?
I see a lot of. I use Onyx because it's just a perfect jack of all trades, but it really has some deficiencies for e-scouting. I believe it's still free. Google Earth has a pro version
Okay.
that you can download. It used to be a paid subscription, but I downloaded it like 5 or 6 years ago at one point with a free coupon, and I haven't paid for it since. I think they just converted it to free. And one thing that lets you do is you can literally go backwards in time in that aerial photo.
Okay.
So some areas may have a new aerial photo every year and a half. Some areas may not have it for every 5 years.
Yeah.
But some of those areas, I can go all the way back to like 1992
Yeah. Which.
and move forward 2 or 3 years at a time and see how all that vegetation's changed.
Yeah.
But another thing that really has gotten to where it benefits me the most is you can catch, my favorite is those fall time frames.
Yeah.
Because you might catch some of the trees with leaves
And
some
without.
of them without.
Yeah.
And you probably are going to catch different colors of the leaves changing. And that's another thing. Grab a book from the NRCS, it's Natural Resource Conservation Service, agriculture guys use them. they'll have a book on IDing all kinds of forb species and range plants and trees and stuff like that. Learn.
Yeah.
If there's a tree that a deer is always under, figure out what species it is and learn how to identify it. Because, you start looking through, and my favorite one is there was an area that I hunt that this most recent fall, they caught it where the only trees that had leaves still on them were red oaks. So I literally, and it was every red oak across these probably 20 square miles, was just basically out there for me to see. I could literally scroll through and pick out the red oaks. So all I did was go on my GPS and circle the red oaks on Google Earth and email myself that file.
Yeah.
And walk out and ground truth it. And, there's red oaks. So now I've got a patch. Anytime the white oaks fail, that whole area, I know where every patch of red oaks is because that one satellite image.
Yeah. What I love doing, too, is if you get like an October, November time period when you're thinking about going, you can actually see trucks parked in areas, and you can also see like they'll look like just little lakes, but just deer feeders. You can see like on the sides of private. So not that like you should be hunting right on the fence line, but you can say, hey, there's food right here, or you can even say, hey, there's like, you can see someone's blind over there and be like, I don't want to sit behind that feeder because he's shooting that way. I mean, there's so much information to be learned from just looking at Google Earth.
Scouts,
yeah, and I really that Pro, if it's still, I think it's still free.
Okay.
But I mean, the Pro is the one with all the tools. You can do any kind of measurements you want. You can roll those pictures backwards in time. And,
You said Google Earth Pro?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I use.
Yeah, and the resolutions are insane. Like OnX is awesome.
Yeah.
But you zoom all the way in, and you're at 50% of the resolution of what Google Earth goes down to. So, I mean, you can tell make and model on cars sometimes with the newer imagery.
Oh, wow.
So,
Google Earth.
I mean, when you get that kind of detail, it's...
Yeah.
And another thing is one, we don't have a whole lot of terrain change shape-wise here.
Yeah.
So it's all going to be about vegetation, and that's edges, 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 edges. Nothing else matters. You get in this huge, dense forest that's completely canopied over and has been for 40 years. There's nothing to give any kind of a reason or rhyme to where a deer moves.
Nothing but sweet gums and just
because I mean underneath it, it's going to look like a state park.
Yeah,
and they're not deer on public land here are not going to be in areas where we see them on TV.
Yeah.
If you can see 70 yards in the woods,
you're not in spot.
You're in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
It looks good. It looks awesome. That's where we always want to be because you can see so far. But it doesn't matter if you can see far if they're not going to be there in the first place.
That was one of the first lessons I think we learned is we'd get to a spot and we're like, man, look at these shooting lanes. I'm like, we don't need to be here.
Yeah. I mean, I set up, on average, my trees, I typically set up from about 15 yards. Is probably my average distance to where I consider my shot to be.
That's about my range.
And a lot of these areas, I can't see past 25.
Yeah. You're just so tight.
So, I mean, you got to be on your toes.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many deer I've missed in the last 4 years because I was looking at my dadgum phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I look up and he's halfway through,
Damn it.
Or here comes a doe and all I have left is a fawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've listened to Dan in Fault more than one time, like you obviously know that like there's bucks to be shot, 25 yards from the parking lot. But are you one of those that subscribe to just like looking at a map and saying, all right, here's the parking lot, assuming you are parking. I'm writing off the first blank miles or blank.
It depends on
yards.
it depends on the terrain. And really, it depends a lot on the individual property because you get a lot of guys that will hunt like 3 units of a property and they never leave. So they know it like the back of their hands.
Yeah.
And when you realize you've got a unit like that, I literally just walk away. Because, I mean, those guys spend 4 days a week on that place. Number one, they're pressuring it too much because it's 300 acres, and this guy's walking on it 5 times a week. But number two is a lot of those little bitty spots like that, you just can't do. There's pretty similar to that, further away from the parking lot, but there's a unit on LBJ that one of the trails on the way in crosses a creek, and it is the main trail. I mean, it's just, there's no other way into the property. It is beat down from human traffic.
Yeah.
But one of the creek crossings, it's got like, I think 3 or 4 creek crossings. One of the creek crossings, there's a big old bluff that's thick as heck on the top. And there is a buck that made it through this season because I busted him in February that will sit at the top of that sucker and he will watch every single hunter walk by. And you're walking within 30 yards of him. And if you don't step off that trail, he doesn't make a move.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know about it is I busted him coming the wrong way I got in super freaking early before season and was coming out like mid-morning to eat lunch. And I think I just came from the wrong direction. He assumed that he'd know if anybody was on property because he was staring down that trail. And he tore out like I'd shot him.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting pretty close to him trying to get him, and somebody was dragging a deer out this season early in October. And I guess they had one of those sleds because it sounded like a bulldozer coming through the woods. And he came tearing out of that exact same spot. And that time I got to walk over and I checked his tracks, and he was a good solid 3.5, 4-finger track.
Wow.
But I busted him 3 or 4 times out of that, like I said, out of that 5 square feet.
Yeah.
And he literally is staring over the trail.
Yeah.
And that I think that's really similar to what Dan was talking about in a lot of his situations. These guys will watch the parking lots. These bucks that they live for a reason. They got some kind of quirk.
Yeah.
That gets them through.
Yep. Absolutely.
They've got to. There's too many people trying to kill them.
Yeah,
You know?
just either that or you got to find them when they're stupid. I mean, where I shot that deer, I went back this year and it was just like, forget it. It was like you just walk out of there. Just 3 guys.
Yeah.
Well, and it's probably because so many people got him on camera and spent 2 years trying to find him, and everybody narrowed down, and they're still trying to get him.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, that's true.
I've noticed that.
There he is on my wall somehow.
I've noticed that. You get a buck of that quality up there on public land, and if he makes it through one season, you'll have a bunch of people in that place next year.
Yeah. Yeah, because
bunch of guys.
He wasn't not on camera. I mean, I did get him in October, and I didn't see him get on camera, or never saw him get on camera. He was on the ground next time I saw him. But yeah.
That's one of those, oh, look at this, when you come across him on your trail camera.
Yeah.
So, you boys have any other questions about public land? And we'll...
Only 500, but this is a...
It sounds like y'all do
mean,
just as much
podcast.
public land hunting as I do.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all we do, but...
My favorite thing to ask people that hunt public land is what's your scent regulation?
Yeah.
Because, you talk to some guys and they're like, I just play the wind. That's it. And you talk to some guys that are full suit and duct tape and...
My thing is on it is...
Eating carbon.
Yeah. So,
Fart and carbon.
Yeah, so my thing on it is they're going to smell me. So everything else is a matter of, percentages. So I play the wind on every setup, every entry, every exit. My entries and exits are typically completely different because my way, where I expect the deer to go is completely different than where I expect him as I come in. But I have dry wash everything in ozone before. I don't do anything in stand. I don't do cover scents. I don't try to spray down with, any of those products. But I will dry wash because, you get done dry washing and let it air out for a second so you don't smell ozone. You literally smell nothing.
Yep.
Dry wash, I don't know what that is.
It's when you just take an ozone machine,
Okay.
put your clothes in a bag and zip it up with it on and just let it soak. Don't let it run all night because you'll literally eat through the fabric of everything you own. It's really, really high oxidation. So, it'll burn through a lot of the synthetic fabrics. But, I just know my elastic stuff's not going to last as long because I'm using a whole bunch of ozone on it. But, run the ozone machine for 10 minutes with the bag shut, unplug it, let it sit overnight in that little bit of ozone, and it, it'll go from smelling like a men's locker room to not really having much of a smell the next morning.
Which is what you want.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sure I stink by the time I get 3 miles back or 2 miles back or a mile and a half back.
For sure.
So, my whole thing is it's too hot down here for carbon suits.
Yeah.
You just can't do it.
Yeah.
You're going to die of heat stroke.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's why I always ask because, I don't think any suit or, scent locker or any of that stuff really does all that much. It might help you a little bit, but on a 2-day hunt,
Yeah.
giving yourself a whore bath in a truck stop bathroom,
I'm just saying, if I can smell myself,
yeah,
they can smell me
exactly.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One thing I will say, though, is I know it's getting a lot of press now that Dan's getting a lot more popular, is milkweed
Yep.
is just the greatest thing in the world.
We were talking about that earlier.
Thanks to your brother, I have some.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
And
have y'all
it's
discussed
awesome.
milkweed on the podcast?
No, I think
Not in detail at all.
I think we've mentioned it a couple times,
Have
but
we
never.
mentioned it?
I don't even know if we have.
not enough for me to really
Yeah.
Because
remember.
a lot of guys don't even know what it is. It's just a plant that flowers.
Yeah.
And, the seed pod has all these seeds in it, and the way it carries it is like these tiniest, lightest freaking little silky hairs you've ever seen. And all I do is I get the pods right before they open, and I let them dry with a rubber band around them. And then I pull all the seeds off of them because they just weigh a little bit more. And then I just stuff all those floaty hairs down into an old 35 millimeter film canister.
Yep.
Or some people use like one of those pinch coin purses, like the little plastic rubber ones you give a kid. Just something that'll hold it, but you can like slowly pull it out.
Old school things.
Yeah. I mean, they're the best though. You can find them at Goodwill, dollar stores, some bootstrap farmer guy. I mean,
oh my gosh,
do it cheap. But I mean, you pull it out and you let it go, and I don't care what the wind is doing, it will 100% do it until you can't see it anymore. So
I've gotten to the point where I'm like, all right, so I've got the little part, I'm going to let go. I'm like, okay, where is the wind blowing? What is your best guess?
And you're always wrong.
I'm always wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been like, it's coming this way, no doubt, and it just goes,
into it.
And that's
right into it, right where I thought it was going.
And that's why your normal like powder checker, like they work okay for hitting it, but they're only going to tell you what's like
5 feet.
right in front of you. Yeah, right in front of you, right behind you, wherever it goes, you're only going to see it for like 5 feet.
With a piece of milkweed, you'll watch it go down the hill real slow, just kind of keeping the same height, and all of a sudden it'll get past a big old cedar tree or hit a sun patch, and it'll turn 90 degrees to the left.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's those times that you're like, there's no freaking way he smelled me.
Yeah.
And there's times that literally that I have had a deer either like quartering upwind smell me, and I start dropping milkweed, and it's like I'm solid, and I keep dropping milkweed for a minute, maybe drop 8 or 10 pieces, and all of a sudden one of them will do this big swirl around me.
Yeah, you're like,
and ends up 40, 50 yards upwind of me.
Yeah.
It's
just I think too the powder doesn't work on a still day.
Right.
As well. Where the milkweed, I mean, you could be like, it's the stillest of still days, and you still get that, okay, there's where the wind kind of thermals are going.
The only thing that really is like the detriment to milkweed is when you have a really low pressure day, that air's falling.
Yeah.
And the moment that milkweed hits anything with dew on it or gets caught up in any kind of grass, it's just done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'll go to the bottom of your stand. But another thing that tells you is your scent's going right to the bottom of your stand, and it's probably pooling in this big bubble of human scent that's getting bigger and bigger the longer you sit there. So a lot of those times, those days are good for an hour or two sit, and then everything within 15 yards, 20 yards of all directions of you can probably smell you anyways.
Yeah.
Sorry, rabbit hole.
That's what the Stormwater Creek podcast is a rabbit hole. And people who are listening going, that's not a rabbit hole. Jordan didn't start talking about some weird ass shit. So
I've been in good behavior lately.
We've been really good on rabbit holes. All right, so any other questions? Are you boys good?
Let's talk about saddle.
Let's talk saddles.
Let's do it.
I was trying to say something else.
Yeah, a little salt and pepper song. Nobody.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody.
I know what you're talking about.
Let's talk about saddles, baby.
Okay, so
Primus.
Oh, Jerry was race car driver. So we kind of talked about, you use what's called a sit drag. So what's the difference between a sit drag and like what you would buy on tethers, like a Mantis?
This is totally DIY. This is at my own risk. This is not considered to be a life-saving device. It's not rated for that. I just know the strengths of all the stuff that goes into it, and I personally trust it for myself. I'm a real small guy.
Sure.
As you can see, I'm like 5'7", 150 maybe when I'm soaking wet. So I mean, it's easy for me to trust stuff when I'm as small as I am, and I'm really, really vigilant. I don't let any slack in my gear. When I'm going up the tree, there's always tension on the rope. With tension always in my system, there's really no way for me to truly fall.
Yeah.
Because it's going to swing me into the tree.
Yeah.
Because I've already got some tension on there. So I'm not like truly falling. So I know my shock loads are going to be really low. You can go the DIY route. If anybody's going to do a DIY setup, I recommend doing a rock climbing harness underneath it.
Okay.
There's a lot of guys that run a rock climbing harness and literally a piece of fleece.
Okay.
And the fleece is just there to spread their weight out, and they can pull it up real low on their legs and pull it way up on their back, and they have like this 15 inches of this really soft, cushy fabric that holds most of their weight, but the rock climbing harness is there to back them up. But as expensive as people get some sticker shock on some of these saddles.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. They look very much worth it, like materials
right.
and
because I think the newest Arrow Hunter just came out like a few days ago. The Kestrel Flex, which is a modification of their original Kestrel, which looks awesome. It's like right at 270, 260.
Yeah.
But stop and think how much a good stand costs.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I looked at when I was looking at it is like we own several stands.
Yeah.
Because when we do things, we go hang a stand and leave it out there. So we have 4 or 5 stands out there. So that's just, and one of the benefits of this am to understand is the quickness of up and down.
Yeah. So I showed y'all one of my climbing methods earlier, which is on land that I can do. I've got a little hand drill that has a 3/8 inch bit on it. There's a couple brands that make them. Mine is made by Easy Cut, K with a K, not a C.
Okay.
So letter E, letter Z, K-U-T. There's another one called Tree Hopper that's come back in business that's like the Porsche. Like that guy's a true engineer that's geeking out on it, making it as awesome as possible.
Yeah.
But all it does is it literally just drills a hole in the tree. And instead of like screwing in a step, you slide in a bolt. And the system's designed around a 3/8
Yeah, I'm gonna take a
inch
if you don't
grade 8
mind, I'm gonna
bolt.
take a picture of
Yeah,
all
go
this
for it.
whenever we're done to put up.
So literally, I've got this little hand drill. It's not much bigger than a 1/2 inch bolt with a little handle on the side. Folds way up, and then I've got however many of the bolts that I need. And when I prep a tree on any of the properties that I can use a drill, in my notes I tell myself exactly how many bolts I need. So it's a little slow the first time you use it. So it's not. It's still my run and gun because I can literally put my whole climbing method in my front pocket. And I've switched to carbon bolts. I don't recommend it for most guys because when they fail fast. It's not like a regular bolt. They don't bend before they die.
Can you flex them like arrows?
Not as short as that is.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could hear cracks in them. Like
No,
you
it's
just
like
give them pressure.
With a 6-inch length, when that sucker goes, it goes.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys on Saddle Hunter that nobody's had any of them break in the tree, but a couple of guys were testing them on the ground and stomping on them and kind of jumping some weight on them, and they did break a couple of the carbon ones. So a lot of guys aren't comfortable with that, and I don't recommend something that's that marginal for most people. But I do it because my whole climbing method, including the pouch that it's in, the drill that gets me up there, I'm at like a pound.
I mean, this is like noticeably different.
Right. But I mean, if all you're carrying is 15 of those bolts,
Yeah.
it's still a tiny little bitty climbing method.
I mean, you have a Hawk hat, and I use those Hawk helium sticks.
Yeah.
And they're awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's no way you could even compete. There's just
So I took my Hawk sticks and cut them down.
okay.
So everything I've got's modified or customized because
Dude,
I'm such a small guy though.
we love DIY.
But I'm such a small guy. Like those 36-inch steps, they either hang so far below my waist that I catch everything in the woods, and anytime I step over limbs or briars, or they hang so high that I can't duck under anything.
Yeah.
And I think what do they run, like 16-inch steps to start with?
Yeah.
Who the heck only steps up 16 inches? Like I'm a small guy, and my natural step is 20 inches.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of wasted steppage.
Yeah.
So I cut mine down to where I only have 2 steps, a bottom and a top. And the steps themselves are 20 inches apart, and I think that puts my stick at like 22 inches.
I need to see a picture of this. If you got, well, we don't have to right now, but
I'll have to.
Yeah.
I'll have to find it.
Yeah.
I
just got to see I want to see what that looks like.
Yeah. So it's just take the steps out of the middle.
Yeah.
And it's a little shorter.
Okay.
And that's what it looks like. And I've replaced all the ropes. I use Amsteel. Have you ever heard of Amsteel? Used a lot in like high-dollar winches for cars and like anchors and stuff. It's the main fabric's Dyneema, which is super freaking strong. And this is actually I forgot I have this. That's Amsteel, and that is 3/8 inch, and that's got a few 1,000-pound breaking limit on it.
Wow, that seems solid.
The only downside to that is it's slick as snot, so you can't tie knots in it. So everything is done with a splice, but the splicing is super easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a hard splice. A few minutes with a picture, and I made the tools to do it. You can buy what's called a FID, which is what lets you slide the tail up through the core of the rope. And I just made it out of those big, massive, like knitting needles.
Yeah.
I just cut one in at a diagonal, and it makes a FID. So
this is what do you use this?
I brought just one. This is another climbing method. It's called a Wild Edge step.
Okay, Wild Edge.
And this predates Wild Edge. This is before they bought it from Jim Stepp, who was the original inventor. So this is not their original rope because my rope was like 12 years old.
So it's like for everybody, just to kind of explain what it is, it looks like a V, and I believe what you do is you tie that around the tree and then you lock it down.
Yeah,
right?
you cam it
flip
down.
it in.
And so the guys that sell this now that have bought the company, really good at marketing. The other guy, like, he built them, and whoever heard about him and called his phone number or found it.
Yeah.
That's all he did.
Yeah.
So the guys that have the company now, actually on their Instagram, it's probably been a year or two since they bought the company, but right after they bought it, they did a picture of a single step, one of these steps, and each step weighs about a pound with the rope, 1.1 pounds-ish, each step with the rope. And that's one step steel step, 1 pound steel step. They hung his four-wheeler from it on the tree.
Yeah.
With their stock rope, they have a carrying case that comes with it. There's a very specific knot that goes on the side, and they've embroidered the knot on the carrying case, so you always have a picture of the knot.
Okay.
Once you get it down, it's literally second nature.
Yeah.
You know, there's a little crossbar on this V that goes across, and that's, you know, once you get that knot down, you can literally do it in the dark without looking at it, and just get it to where it'll almost cam over, but not quite, and then oomph it the rest of the way, and that sucker's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And you use this in lieu of the platform?
So I'll use this sometimes in lieu of the platform. Sometimes I will stand on the bolts. So
Okay.
I'll do like a ring. Sometimes some trees I'll do 3 bolts on top. Some I'll do 5. And then I've got the Predator platform made by Tethered, which is like about the size of the seat of a Lone Wolf Alpha,
Yeah.
smidge bigger than the seat portion of the Lone Wolf. In fact, before I bought this, I did use my seat of my Lone Wolf as my platform.
As your platform.
I put it on the same width aluminum bar that the Lone Wolf main bar is. I put a XOP bracket, like for a climbing stick, on the top and bottom of it. And then I use that same camming method that we'd use over here, you know, where your rope's not quite long enough to come all the way down. And then when it does, it's got all that pressure built up and it holds it against the tree.
Yeah.
And I used that for a few years. But, I mean, these guys, Greg and Ernie, who own Tethered, Greg Godfrey and I don't know Ernie's last name.
We're going to have Greg on the podcast.
Are you really?
Yeah, so
Nice.
Greg and I have been talking, and Greg's going to be on the podcast here pretty soon.
Yeah, he's super awesome guy. So they got together with the two of them, DIY Sportsman.
Yep.
Yep.
Garrett was a big portion of the design, and then a couple other guys on Saddle Hunter. And they really, honestly, we as a group, before all these products started coming out, I can't even tell you how many hundreds of different shapes and ways of doing things. We did everything. I mean, we DIY. That's the whole point. It was basically
I mean, it's a wormhole. Like, on the outside looking in for us, just trying to look at it, it was just like, Jesus. It's like, how do you, you know.
It was a DIYers forum with a hunting addiction is really what it was. I mean, it was Saddle Hunter, and it all evolved around saddle hunting. But, I mean, even the greatest thing of a platform that we ever thought as far as versatility, they blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
I mean, little stuff. This very front edge has a little, like a 45-degree kick out right here, and it doesn't look like much, but with a toe on there, I can spin 170 degrees around the tree.
Yeah.
And that little toe, this cams in so tight to the tree that little toe will hold, and this doesn't even twist to the side.
Yeah.
I mean, this tiny little platform is rock solid when you get it in.
Yeah.
So I didn't get this in time for any of the season this last year. I was still hunting on bolts or my wild edge steps, or I had several hunts that I literally stood on the top of my hawk sticks.
Yeah.
You know,
And
for
just
4 hours stood on the top of my hot sticks.
And so that was if you were doing something like that. So obviously that platform looks like your feet would be fine, right?
Yeah.
And even something like this wild edge step, or the bolts, or the steps. I mean, standing on that for like a long period of time. I mean, do you get any feet? Like, how does your feet feel?
So on the bolts,
Yeah.
if your shoes are really soft soled, they're gonna kill you.
Yeah.
So what I do is I found like 3 spots on my foot
Yeah.
that my types of boots will hold the bolt without any slippage, without having to worry about anything. And I'll just slowly move when one section of my foot gets fatigued. I'll move them from the balls of my feet maybe to the arches.
Yeah.
And I'm good for another 50 minutes. And
Yeah.
then I'll move them kind of to the front edge of my heels, and I'm good for another 50 minutes. And the same thing with all of my muscular structure that's supporting me. Since I primarily lean instead of sit, all I do is, I can literally lean my back just a few inches away from the tree.
Yeah.
And, I'm hooked in at the waist, so my waist stays the same distance, but just leaning back a few inches changes which muscles all the way up and down my back and legs support everything. Or, I'll kind of shift to quartering away from the tree for a little bit and stick my left leg,
Up against the tree.
up against the tree.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will, in my rotation, I kind of sit down with my knees up against the tree.
Yeah, I've
for a
seen
little
dudes
bit.
who put like knee pads on and then they'll sit up against the tree.
And that's
like that.
primarily guys that sit. There are
Yeah.
literally guys that don't stand or lean in their saddles once
Yeah.
they're up at height. They treat it like a tree stand that faces the tree.
Yeah.
Well, I have seen them like try to get like less slack in it, so the deer's coming in and they're like, kind of scrambling like one hand to
shit,
like
yeah.
kind of hoist
See-
themselves up into standing position. So I'm like, you might as well just stand.
And that's why I love standing. Number one, because that's what engages my jacked up back
Yeah.
and keeps me from hurting. But number two, I'm always ready.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon. We talked about really tight tree setups where
Yeah.
your shooting lane is 15 yards wide and you can see 20 yards, and you've literally got that 15 yards of them walking by to figure out if it's a shooter, pick up your bow, and make the shot.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of times in trees like that, I'll literally hold my bow the whole time
yeah.
I'm in the tree. Now that's not an all day sit, but I may have my bow in my hand for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Because the way I lean, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I can literally get a shot off within
Just
about 5 seconds of making a
boom.
decision if he's
Yeah.
a shooter or not.
So, as far as, and I'm sure the one question that always comes to mind is like, do you feel like you're going to fall out of it?
You would think.
So, like your first experience, like the first time you went up, did you feel like you were going to fall out?
So
Like that 1 second of,
Yeah.
this might be a
is
bad
this,
idea.
Is this going to
So-
be? Yeah.
that's why I'll say when you're testing out a saddle, do everything at ground level. Whatever you think your platform might be or steps
Yeah.
might be, do it at ground level. Because the only time you will ever feel like you're going to fall out of a saddle is the very first time you step up on a platform and lean back into it.
Yeah.
The moment you have done that, it's over. You know
Yeah.
you're not going anywhere. Greg, G2 Outdoors, is his YouTube channel that y'all are going to have on. He actually has a video of him hanging upside down in his saddle.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing. Can you fall out of this? And I think it was right after they launched the Mantis.
Yeah.
Tether launched the Mantis, so he's in his Mantis doing it. But mine doesn't have leg straps because it's DIY.
Yeah.
This has it's arrested 2 falls of mine. One was my hawk stick kind of spun
Yeah.
around that center pivot, that center
Yep.
connection point, which I've switched over to the Versa button, like is on the Lone Wolf sticks.
Yeah. Like DIY did.
Yeah, and my biggest problem is I didn't pay attention to my bottom bracket
Yeah.
on that stick. There was a spot in the tree that kind of went concave. So when you step on the bottom, that's not a problem. It's pulling down on
Yeah.
the rope. But the moment I hit the top, it didn't have much friction on that
Yeah.
bottom one. And that was it was literally just stupid.
Yeah.
I was moving fast. I was in my dad's backyard just doing some target practice out of his tree and didn't pay attention like it was a hunt. And the whole stick, everything I'm standing on, spun 180 degrees.
Holy shit.
I came out from underneath it. And, I got a little road rash on my knuckles because your first instinct is to grab that bridge that comes off your saddle, which is goes from your left hip to your right hip. That's what your main rope system connects into.
That's the rope you're holding in your hand
Yeah,
now,
and
right?
this is also Dyneema. Same thing as this one. This
Yeah.
one's got like a 4,600 pound breaking length. So,
Yeah.
if this breaks, I have a lot bigger problems.
Yeah. Something else is.
because the shock load on this is literally higher than my internal organs can take.
Yeah.
So if this breaks, I've already got
It's already.
Right.
You were hit by an asteroid.
yeah. My hips broke, and
Yeah.
there's no
It's
kind
all
of,
over for you.
There's no fall in the world that's
Yeah.
going to get that. But my first reaction, of course, is to grab your ropes,
Yeah.
and the saddle did what it was supposed to do. It swung me into the tree and pinned me against the tree. Think of it like a swing.
Yeah.
It is a swing.
It's a
You're
swing.
hooked in higher than you are. At that point, I was in the lines of the belt. And then the other one, I was another stupid moment. This is kind of just a don't be stupid conversation, isn't it?
Hey.
I was using existing limb on a tree as a stopgap for not putting in one more step,
Yeah.
and it gave way on me. And that one, since I'd already had the previous fall, I knew not to reach over and grab
Yeah.
my ropes because I trusted my ropes to do what they were going to do. I literally put my hands back like I was trying to tell somebody I'm not going to fight you,
Yeah.
and it pinned me against the tree. I was a little bit bruised
Yeah.
in my ribs, but a lot of either one of those situations when I was doing my lone wolf,
Yeah.
I'd have been in real
Trouble.
trouble
Yeah.
because my system wasn't set up to keep me from falling that far.
Yeah. I'm. That's my thing. Is always just like I just get weirded out like a little bit going up, and then once I'm up, I'm like a little nervous, and then I'll calm down. But
Do you trust your hunter safety system? Do you wear one?
yeah.
So-
I trust it because I've hung from it before, but
So
when something gives out and you're sitting there, and all of a sudden, what you're sitting on is gone. That's the test, though, right?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and so
I don't want to bash
sure.
hunter safety system certification process, but it doesn't come anywhere near the safety levels and ratings of the climbing world.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of the modern day saddles are based on.
Sure.
Kind of like we borrow a lot of equipment and a lot of ideas from the climbing world. So technically, by manufacturer design, if your hunter safety system has arrested a fall, it goes in the trash.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It is not designed to handle a second one.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. When tethered, I haven't seen if Arrow Hunter, which is one of the other big games in town, I haven't seen if they've gotten official testing or released it. I know they all in-house do it until they're comfortable hanging from it like a monkey. But Greg and Ernie took the Mantis and the Predator to HSS to get certified. I don't know. They're trying to figure out a way to fit saddles into a certification process, but the Predator held over 800 pounds, and that's as high as the machine would go. And then I think it's one of his Instagram stories or a comment he put on Saddle Hunter was that they literally broke the testing method on the Mantis.
Oh, wow.
So, like, I don't think the whole apparatus broke, but like the stuff that held the Mantis in to be tested for weight is what broke, not the Mantis. So these guys, all of them, all the brands. So you got Arrow Hunter, you've got Tethered, you've got another one called the JX3 Hybrid, which is like the lazy boy of saddles.
Okay.
I mean, it's got like a plastic frame, and it's kind of like being in a lawn chair, literally.
Okay.
Instead of wearing knee pads like a whole lot of the sitters do, it's got like a rod that comes out in between your legs that goes against the tree, so you literally don't have to rest against the tree. The whole thing takes it. It's a little hot for me, a little bit heavy. A lot of my liking in saddles is the weight.
That's the thing for me. It's like if my whole reason to go to a saddle is to cut as much weight as possible.
Yeah.
You know,
but his gives you, the JX3 gives you a lot of the benefits of the saddle as far as maneuverability and tree selection. And I think his also can be used as run and gun turkey seat.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like a best of both worlds. He's got like a bow hanger on the side that you can hang your bow or rifle from on a sling. And then there's some...
Have you rifle hunted out of a sling before?
I have not hunted with a rifle in about 5 or 6 years. I do have a couple spots up on the Red River that I'm thinking about on the Texas side using a rifle next year. A lot of the guys that do, it is by far easier than hunting out of a traditional stand with a rifle.
Oh, yeah?
Because you can always set your setup with the tree between you and what you're shooting.
Oh, so you've got that.
It's like being on the ground and leaning into a tree to take a shot. Yeah. So it's super freaking stable.
Yeah.
And instead of freestanding and leaning against a tree, you can only move from the hips up once you put that weight into that saddle.
Yeah.
So it pulls half of your possible movement out before you even lean against the tree. So it's a lot of the guys that do rifle and muzzleloader hunt out of it have, like, that's the first thing that they moved 100% to. Like, it took them longer to go 100% out of a bow because there is a little bit you need to practice from a tree. Yeah. Because it changes your form a little bit. But I mean, getting comfortable in a saddle, you can do it in an afternoon. Yeah. Easy. You could get to where you can shoot well out of a saddle in probably 2 afternoons, maybe 3, and I mean like easily. It's just like anything else. If you don't practice form, you're gonna have wonky shots. If you don't pick up your bow until a week before season, don't expect to shoot well. Yeah, but you know, you throw 2 or 3 afternoons shooting at a target out of a saddle in a tree at height, so you get the angles right. You're solid. Yeah.
As if y'all didn't need any other reason to not upgrade the SS Leaky Creek. You're like, what sounds better, a boat or a platform with the best platform? And
well, it sounds like a rabbit hole, but so many of the guys that pick up a saddle and truly give it a chance. Yeah. Like we got when we first started hitting all over social media and the saddles hit a whole bunch of podcasts and kind of became this new trendy thing. Yeah. You get a lot of guys that want to be able to buy it, hop in the system just like it's a millennial stand, and be good to go without thinking about it. Yeah. I mean, it does take just a little bit. You might be a little fatigued because some of those little bitty tiny support muscles
that's one thing I read. Like a lot of people say that they're like, you're gonna get like it takes all different muscles to be in this thing.
But the good thing is it neither one of those muscles has to hold a whole lot of weight. Yeah. So they're, after a couple of long sits, you might be a little bit sore, a little bit tender, but it doesn't take, I'd say easily 5 sits, and I'm in saddle shape
Yeah.
for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And that's if I didn't sit in the tree for target practice. That's if I didn't
Yeah.
do any tree prep in the beginning. Like, literally, if I set preseason, if I set several trees up, I'm good to go.
Yeah. He always has to take his headset off.
And
He's
no matter
the most-
how
he's so
gently,
ADD riddled.
no matter how gently you do it, you're gonna hear it.
Oh, I had to yell at Brandon the other day because I had to edit our I'd never edit our podcast, and so he was touching the microphone.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm just like, oh my God.
Well,
I just texted him. I was like, I swear to God, if you ever touch the microphone again. But I got it all
It was
out.
pretty bad.
We like to rag on Brandon, but
Yeah, but I mean, don't let getting into quote saddle shape
Yeah.
scare you, because it's harder to get into bow shooting shape
Yeah.
by far than it is to get into saddle shape.
Yeah. I mean, it's so intriguing to me from a standpoint of just being able to. I feel like it opens up so much more in the woods for you to be able to utilize.
Dude, you don't even know the trees
Yeah.
that I've set in.
So that's a great question. Using kind of like a beer can or a soup can, or using something that somebody could visualize. Like, what is the kind of the width of a tree that you've?
Like at the height that I'm sitting, or at the base trying to gauge it from the ground.
Let's talk about the sketchiest
What-
tree
yeah.
you've ever been in.
One than the other.
I've had a tree that was slightly arched from my weight just from sitting still in it on a still day.
Okay.
I've had a tree that
How long did you sit in that? Before
I
you're
was
like,
in that tree for 5 hours.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I even told my wife that one was a little sketch.
Yeah.
And I don't think
Got
it
a
was
little
from.
seasick when the wind picked up.
Well, no, it was a dead calm day. And the
Yeah.
only reason I would sit there is because it hung just a smidge over a really steep drop off, and it was really low pressure, so my scent was dropping, and it was
Yeah.
going off the cliff.
Yeah.
And literally, 20 yards out in front of me was the higher ground that I intended to shoot towards.
Yeah.
There was a couple of guys on there. One of the guys posted a picture a long time ago on Saddle Hunter, so it's probably not going to be real hard to find. But he literally took like 5 saplings and pulled them together and wrapped them in paracord to help support the main little bitty sapling he was on.
Wow.
I mean, don't do that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
But I mean, if
it's
it will
something that's
physically,
like a Coke can, you have no problem with.
yeah, Coke can, depending on the species. If it's a softwood, a Coke can's
Okay.
gonna be pretty small. If I think the tree itself will support me, I will sit in it.
Yeah.
Like if I'm comfortable that tree will hold me, I
Okay.
can sit in it. No questions asked. Now, you got to be really careful on those really small trees.
Yeah.
Because when you move, the whole top of it moves.
Yeah.
So it really is better to do that on a day that's not high wind, so you don't get seasick, but enough wind that if you get some movement repositioning, that the deer doesn't pick it off.
Yeah.
But I've also set cottonwoods that I needed a second rope to get my lineman's belt around.
Yeah.
John Eberhardt, I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
He's archery only, intense guy. He's hunted out of a homemade saddle for 30 years. And his is literally just webbing sewn together. There's no comfort, no nothing to it. I mean, he will climb cottonwood trees that he can't even get a rope around. So he will put screw-in steps where he can reach on one side, and he will climb the screw-in steps all the way up to a T-screw that he puts in the tree, and he hangs from the T-screw. Doesn't even put a rope all the way around the tree.
Whew.
My gonads aren't big enough for that, but he's done it for 25 years. And
Wow.
and that's the whole thing, is he can get into trees, and I've done the same thing. I can get into trees that nobody else would ever consider sitting in.
Yeah.
And a lot of these units on public land, none of the good bucks are anywhere near a tree that's big enough to put a stand in.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to where I do a lot of hunting from the ground, and if I'm not on the ground, I'm in a saddle.
Yeah. A lot of ground hunting, huh?
Yeah, I just started that this year, and it's
Yeah.
I don't know. Tactically, it's not doing awesome for me.
Sure.
And I think it's because I just don't. It's a unknown.
You haven't made enough mistakes yet.
Right. I haven't made enough
Yeah.
mistakes to get it on. But anytime anything does happen, it's super freaking intense because it's
Yeah.
in your face.
Yeah.
And it just sometimes those areas that have the buck bedding literally just, even for a saddle, don't even have a tree.
Yeah.
Like when you're in an area that the tallest thing is 15 feet, you're not getting in a tree.
Yeah.
Because it's not even a Coke can at the ground,
Yeah. Exactly.
diameter-wise. So that's another big public land tip, is don't discount something just because you can't stick a stand in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried a little bit of ground hunting this year, and I something that we talked shit about for a long time, but I was like,
There's
you know
we talk shit about it because there's some places that you just don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, like it's dumb to do it.
Yeah.
If you're walking through a potato chip forest because all the leaves have fallen and there's a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and no matter, like, I don't care how soft you think you can walk, like, you just put your foot down, or you, like, step into some wet leaves because you're like, oh, this won't make noise, and there's just tree limbs underneath it. It's like, you're like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the place we make fun of it
Yeah.
because the place we've seen people do it, we can hear them coming. And it
A
takes them
mile
like
away.
it takes them 20 minutes before we actually see them, and,
And
then
then
we're like,
they like cut limbs and set it up that day and think that
Oh
someone's
my
gonna
God.
walk by them. And
Yep.
we watched two people in white jeans walk out. It's like,
you
why-
love this story.
Why are you
Hey,
wearing white jeans?
If it was snowing on the ground, it would have worked.
That's right.
Yeah, it's know,
Ignore the
October
fact. Ignore
in
the fact that
Texas.
it's 65 or 70 degrees.
Yeah, I wish it was like 80.
Dude, I think that's another thing to be said. You're going to see some crazy stuff on public land.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, my least favorite thing is to get 2 miles back in a tree and on my way in or way out, pass by some tree that somebody's got, like, 7 Mad Dog bottles and 2 24-packs of beer cans on the ground.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have that. It's just when anybody can do it, and
Ground
it's
blind
basically
with a
free.
leopard skin
Yeah.
chair in it.
Yeah.
Saw that a couple times.
Yeah, the burlap camo don't do it. I think that's one thing. It feels good to put that burlap up because you think they can't see you, but no matter what you do, those paint schemes are still going to come across as a solid mass.
Yeah.
Which is an unnatural look.
Yeah,
So what I've gotten to where I do, I actually stole this from a hunting buddy of mine named Dave, is took some PVC pipe and cut it at like a 45-degree angle so it's got a spike on one end, and then kind of just spray painted it, browns and light greens like our grasses are. And I'll take that, shove it into the ground, and then grab like handfuls of grass and break a sapling or something and drop it down into the tube of the PVC so it'll stand up in front of me, just to give me some 3D texture break.
Yeah.
That's worked pretty good. Yeah, that's super simple.
It's a hot tip.
Yeah, like just 4 or 5 pieces of 1.5 inch PVC. I just stick a bungee around it.
Yeah.
And it's always in my backpack if I get somewhere new and I'm not like going to a tree. It's in my backpack because if I get part of the way there and there's some phenomenal sign
Yeah.
and I don't have a place to sit, shove those into the ground, grab some couple handfuls of grass and drop it down in there. And that gives you that clump and it breaks up that, you don't have that big flat wall in front of you like burlap.
That's a great tip.
Because you can sit in a lot of places like that.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, too. Like I said, with the saddle, I don't feel like I have to hang it in a tree if I bring it.
Yeah.
You know?
I've actually sat in the saddle on ground level.
Yeah.
All of our post oaks,
Yeah.
you get 10 feet up and it's nothing but branches.
Yeah.
I've had times that I'm like, I'm going to climb this tree. This is perfect. I'm 15 yards from the perfect cross trail. And I get up there and you can't see out of it because it's so daggum thick. You can't even see the ground when you get up there. And I literally climbed back down to the ground, hooked up my saddle at ground height, and leaned back.
And you're just kind of chilled there.
Because then I can stay supported and I can always put the tree between me and the deer.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing to do. Everybody talks about getting picked off and needing good back cover, and that's good.
Sure.
Because especially trees, you don't know what direction they may be coming out of. But if I've got a tiny little bedding area, and I know if he picks this trail, he's coming right through here.
Yeah.
That's the only reason for him to be here. I can put that tree to where I'm looking across the side of the tree with one eye,
Yeah.
and I can leave it like that, and I can watch him all the way in, and he has a 2-inch sliver of me on the side of the tree is all he might pick out. Whereas, traditional stand, you look like a
thing
big
up there.
Yeah, you look like another tree trunk hanging off the side of it.
Yeah.
You need a lot of back cover for that.
Yeah. Now I'll have to get a tree saddle.
Yep.
Damn it.
It's great. It's like how many private land guys go into this kind of conversation too about hunting in general. You just you don't almost need to do all that. So it's just exciting to talk about all this to the umpteenth degree. Just like that, like you said, like an extra inch on the platform is like how serious this gets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For all this stuff,
that's
pretty
one
great.
cool thing about the saddle is it streamlines everything. Weight's not all of it. I told you that.
Sure.
I was playing the ounces. I use one of my climbing methods is literally carbon fiber, and probably not in the safety percentages of weight load that it should be, but it's shaved ounces.
Yeah.
But there's no point in shaving a few ounces if it's bulky or if it's not ergonomic or it doesn't work well or you can't do it silently in the middle of the night with no light on. So there's a lot of places I've added weight back in.
Yeah.
Just because it works better. And I'd rather carry, 6 more ounces
Then.
than have to work really hard at something that's super easy.
I don't know. It seems like a way to get an advantage.
Yeah.
Where there's so few advantages to be had.
Because I don't worry about what tree I'm going to pick.
Yeah.
A lot of guys, especially guys, we're still running climbers.
Yeah.
That's fine in East Texas. Man, you can stick a climber anywhere in East Texas.
Yeah.
But around here,
I mean, yeah, that's my thing. I have a climber, and I just never use it. 'Cause I'm just like,
how often?
I know you've got yours, but
it's also east of Dallas and north, so it's a lot of pine, a lot of tall, skinny sweet gums. But but once again, once you get in sweet gum territory, that's all you see are sweet gums. So take it and
see. And I hunt mostly like Corps of Engineered properties, backs of lakes, backs of river sections.
Yeah.
And mine it's always either going to be a cottonwood or a sycamore.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I really like the bolts on is the sycamores because there's no grip. I've had let's see, I had an off-brand stick and then my muddies. I have had literally just peel bark for a couple of feet down a sycamore because it literally just rips through the bark because there's no grip to those slick-sided trees. That's why I love the bolts. I mean, these wild edge steps will grip to it like it's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, they just have so much pressure against the tree. Yeah. But I mean, tree selection is a non-factor to me. I mean, I will hunt where the right spot is, regardless of what the tree looks like. And that was probably the biggest liberating thing to me. Is I used to get somewhere and be like, this is awesome. Now where am I going to sit?
Yeah.
And I don't do that anymore. I get somewhere and I figure out where they're traveling through and I try to make some assumptions. And you got to have a lot of time on the ground to figure out why they might be coming through somewhere. And I try to make some assumptions. I'm close to what looks like good buck bedding. That bedding's probably only going to be used on this wind because that's the only reason it's favorable.
Yeah.
So on this wind, he's going to sit there. So I need to be on this side of that. And it doesn't matter.
The chips fall where they may.
Right. I'm not looking for a tree that works. I'm looking for the right tree.
Yeah, in a world of unknowns, which public land's got all the unknowns you can think about it, to have something in your arsenal that's like, I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
It's just so alleviating.
Yeah.
And then back to the ergonomics thing. I mean, as small as I am, a standard stand hangs out the sides of my back.
Yeah.
It's basically as wide or slightly wider than my shoulders. So it was a pain in the butt trying to silence a tree stand through the woods.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a minimizing thing.
Yeah.
That's really all it is to me.
I mean, this is literally fabric.
Yeah.
So, I mean, worst case scenario.
Everything's in your backpack.
Well, that's what I say. Like,
actually,
that platform I can fit in my backpack.
Yeah.
I wear the saddle in.
Yeah.
It's on my waist. So, I mean, I don't even feel that weight because you're wearing it in. It's like a pair of blue jeans.
Yeah.
You don't feel your blue jeans after a little bit. It's just a natural, comfortable weight.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my backpack, I go in with I got a tiny little Rush 511 or a 511 Rush 12. This is probably twice the backpack that I need because I end up throwing a whole bunch of stuff in I don't need. But, I mean, I literally could put everything of my entire system to run and gun, blind, on the fly. I could go to 22 feet. Everything will fit, including that platform in my little Rush 12.
And then, that's
including a liter and a half of water.
Yeah. Do you take a lot of food out in the stand when you go?
I don't take food, but I take a lot of water. Typically, when I'm in season, I'm usually keto anyways.
Yeah.
But in season, I make sure I'm solidly in keto because I can eat an absolute ton of fat.
Yeah.
And not have any energy drops and eat one, do intermittent fasting and like eat one big meal after getting out of the field.
Yeah.
I mean, literally until I feel like can't move, kind of eat.
Yeah.
And then I don't eat again until the same time the next day. But, I mean, I do that, stabilize my blood sugar anyways.
Yeah.
Just to not have that up and down. My job doesn't let me eat when on a schedule.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. So it may be 6, 7, 8 hours between meals at work. So
you gotta figure it out.
I figured out a way to not have to worry about blood sugar. So
I need to figure out how to not eat so much so I'm not so chunky. Well, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming down here and talking to us about this. And you guys have any other questions?
I don't have any other questions, but do you have anything? I mean, you pretty much loaded it out, but is there anything you can think of that would be a good?
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned a few brands already. If you're interested in getting into saddle hunting, I would definitely go on saddlehunter.com. It's a big forum. Every question you might ever have is on there. I mean, it may be buried in the archives, so use some search features.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get pretty complex in the search features, and it'll pull up stuff from 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
Of guys still DIYing it, figuring it out from the start. And everything that is out on the market right now came from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of guys on that site testing.
Just putting it together.
From the DIY level. So none of this is just slapped together.
Yeah.
Everything has a reason. Like even on y'all's ropes, do y'all use a prusik knot?
I use a prusik knot on my lineman's belt. Yeah. And that's...
Have you seen the ropeman yet?
The ropeman?
Oh, God. I just changed your worlds.
Oh, wow. No.
Yeah. So,
I like when people tell me that.
Just stupid, simple stuff like this little rock climbing ascender that replaces...
I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah. And
I'm still confused.
Yeah,
I've been diving deep into this. For
it's another one of those things that we stole out of the rock climbing world. And what an ascender is like you could literally hang a rope and climb the rope.
Yeah.
And nothing else with an ascender.
Okay.
So it'll go one direction up a rope, but not back.
Okay.
So what that does is I use it on my lineman's belt and my tether. And so it won't go this way, but it'll easily slide that way.
Okay.
So when you got your lineman's belt around the tree and it's hooked on either side of your hips, it's always with that prusik, it's a pain.
Oh,
it takes two hands. You got to drop whatever you're doing.
Oh my God.
You got to get in just the right position to get tension off of that.
Yeah.
You want this tighter, and you're on a tree. You grab the tail end and yank, and it's tighter.
Can I see that?
So,
I
so
know
where do you pick these up? Like I know they sell them. I think they sell them on Tethered, don't they?
Tethered sells them. A rock climbing place called Wild Country sells them. You can typically get them on Amazon. There's two versions. There's a Ropeman 1 and a Ropeman 2. The Ropeman 1 is the ones that we use. The Ropeman 2 is for a hard-sheathed rope, which is not supple and easy to use. It's got teeth instead of these gripper bars. So a Ropeman 2 may tear up most of the ropes you're going to use in saddle hunting or hunting in general.
Yeah.
Because our sheaths are, we use ropes that are easier to work with, not 1,000-foot climbing ropes. Just stupid, simple stuff like that. And all of the like climbing stick modification stuff.
Yeah.
Like just ergonomics. Easy. And there's a lot of my mods. Like I got for a while, I was like, every other month I'm going to mod something to make it better.
Yeah.
And most of my mods were $20, $15, $30.
Yeah.
I asked for, parents are always asking, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, I'm in my 30s. Stop buying me presents.
Yeah.
So finally to get my mom off my back.
This.
Yeah. Yeah. Finally to get my mom, I was like, fine, get me this. Send her the link.
Yeah.
I think they're $35, $32. And I didn't think they were going to be that big of a deal. And the moment I got them, it was like the end of it.
It's a game changer.
Yeah. So, Saddle Hunter is huge. It'll answer any question you have.
Yeah.
G2 Outdoors, Greg Godfrey, his YouTube channel goes over a whole bunch of stuff. DIY Sportsman has a whole bunch of YouTube videos. And then as far as like saddle brands, you've got Tethered, you've got Arrow Hunter, you've got the JX3 Hybrid, which is kind of like the Cadillac, the big, heavier, more comfortable one. And then what sounds like a new old guy in town is Trophy Line, which is basically the original commercial available saddle from about 18, 19 years ago that went out of business. Somebody happened to realize that they have a URL up that says coming soon.
Oh, really?
So there's about to be 4 major players. So expect the prices to come down a little bit. They're never going to be able to shave as much price out because a commercial saddle is a lot of skilled sewing. Yeah. So you're paying mostly for labor.
Well, and I think when I was looking for them, I thought it was going to be really smart, and I started looking like arborist harnesses because they use the same thing. I had a guy come cut some of my trees for me, and he uses basically the same thing and could just free climb right in the middle of a tree just off the limbs by throwing a rope over it. And I was like, man, I wonder how much those things cost, because
SRT is expensive.
And they are just as expensive, if not more.
That climbing method's called SRT, single rope technique, where there's a lot of guys that will have a really small, like paracord, like a 550 paracord, that goes from the ground up and over whatever limb they want to hang from and then back to the ground. And they leave it in the tree all year. That is their prep.
Okay.
And then they come out and they tie the end of their climbing rope and they pull the other side of that 550 cord, and it pulls their climbing rope up and over. And if you're really smart, you take the tail of that 550 and you clip it to your carabiner.
Yeah.
And you keep pulling, and that cinches that carabiner up on that limb up there.
Yeah.
And then they use that single rope technique and they climb the rope up. So they don't even need to be touching the trunk of the tree to get up in the tree.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm talking rabbit holes, man.
Dude.
Yeah,
that's expensive though. Those ascenders are very specialized. You're probably looking at a $200 setup to get true into SRT. But a lot of those guys they're sitting in areas that it's a clean trunk for 40 feet.
Yeah.
And they're able to go all the way to the top of 40 feet without having to worry about
40 feet. Jesus Christ, that's a long way up there.
I think I'd get nosebleeds.
Yeah, that's so high.
I feel really high if I get like 16 or 18 feet.
Yeah. I mean, that's my thing. It's like I've been, I'm right about that height. I'm like, I'm far enough up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. But I mean, if you come close to looking into like all those brands and YouTube channels, you're going to know everything you need to know to decide whether or not saddle hunting might be.
I mean, it's definitely, I think it's something that we'll have to check out for sure. And I mean, it's like you said, for the cost of a good solid stand, it's still more than that. But
and the good thing is right now, and it may be a matter of all the manufacturers, since this went from a couple hundred of us nationwide to several thousand orders now a quarter.
Yeah.
All these manufacturers have like a 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 week lead time on getting them out to you. So this is not something you can buy
like
right before season and expect to have it, because everybody's going to right before seasons finally start doing research and do it. But most of the resale value on the saddles right now, I'm not saying it's going to stay this way for the next 10 years, but right now most of the resale values are within about 80 to 90% of the original cost.
Wow.
There's a lot of guys that are able to sell at cost of the original minus shipping to somebody's house, because that person knows, hey, at this price I'll put it in the mail tomorrow.
Yeah.
And there's no lead time, there's no waiting on a batch to come in, there's no, hey, it's going to ship in 3 weeks. So it's at this point it may not be the same.
Sure.
It may be like stands later on where you automatically lose half your value.
Yeah.
But at this point right now there's not a whole lot of financial risk, because you can get most of that money back by reselling it on Saddle Hunter.
I think I'm gonna have to get one.
Yeah.
And the trick is don't just like sit in it and decide.
Give
it a good solid attempt.
Yeah. Oh, I
give it the old college try.
Well, it's like the fly fishing thing. I have a tendency to
overindulge,
cross the bridge, burn the bridge, and leave no chance for a retreat.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you got a lot of guys that did that from the start with saddles, and you got a lot of guys that thought that maybe there were 1 or 2 tree situations they'd do it, and then a year or 2 later they realized they hadn't touched a stand again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got everything in between.
Yeah. I mean,
and also have one more option.
That's the thing. It needs to be super versatile.
I mean, there are some situations where a standard stand will probably work a little bit better.
Yeah.
I will tell you, they are very few and far between.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's not important enough. It's not happening often enough for me to pull my lone wolf off the wall.
Yeah.
Right. And this system to me, and what really intrigued me, the biggest thing is like, especially with all the work we have to do all the time during the week and all that stuff, this is something that throws in your truck real easy.
Yeah.
It's real compact, and you can run after work real fast, throw a small backpack on, quickly walk out to a spot and be up in the tree and be able to hunt for the last bit of light.
Yeah, like I think the tethered Manus is a pound and an ounce.
Yeah.
So you're pulling essentially 11 pounds out of your minimum.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't have expensive stands. I've got the $30 Sportsman's Guide.
Yeah, so you're carrying a lot of weight.
Yeah. So, so I guess the one question I now have come back around to is, so you get to a tree and I turn a stopwatch on. How long does it take you to get from the base of that tree walked up to that tree. You've touched nothing. How long does it take you from that point to the top of the tree?
So your climbing method is however long it takes you to get from the ground to the top of the tree currently.
So
now you want to start exploring different climbing methods.
Yeah.
But you literally could, if you're comfortable with your climbing method, your sticks or your steps or your screw-ins or whatever it is you do, you could keep that exact same process all the way to the top and only change the saddle at the top.
Okay.
So a lot of guys look at saddle hunting, and since we focus a lot on completely altering our climbing methods for the same ergonomics of losing a gear that we got when we switched to a saddle, but you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with your Lone Wolves or your Muddies or your Millennial sticks, you can keep using them.
Yeah.
And it's the same process on the way up. With my bolts, 22 feet, I'm looking at probably not a pre-prep tree. I'm looking at probably 18 minutes.
Okay.
But those holes are good the entire rest of the season.
They're done, yeah.
So if I ever come back to that tree, I don't do it very often, but if I ever come back to that tree, I'm at the top of the tree in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's prepped, and nobody can tell it's prepped because you can't see a 3/8 inch hole unless you're looking for it.
Yeah, you're over there.
And the only reason I know where it's at is because it's always in the same position proportionally on my body.
Yeah.
I can literally instinctually reach up and find the hole in the dark.
Yeah.
And I can barely fit my pinky in it. And I can find it on the side of a tree just because I know where it's at from use. But you can even go, we got a lot of guys where it's legal to use lineman spurs, like those arborists do.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a pair. They're freaking phenomenal if you can use them. I like my drill better because it's just tiny. I mean, this is the size of, not much bigger than a Coke can is my whole climbing method.
Yeah.
But those are super versatile. Ernie, out of Tethered, does an example every year at Saddle Hunter, and he puts his spurs on and sticks his lineman's rope around, and he's 30 feet up within about 25 seconds.
Yeah, just...
Yeah, I mean, but he's a former arborist, so he spent 20 years on spurs.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can go anywhere from that to your normal current climbing method.
Yeah. And then as far as, so the way you hang in the saddle is from a line, right? Down to your bridge.
What you've got is you've got a rope that goes around the tree, and you can either, like, some guys put a big long splice in that end, and they just feed the rope through. Instead of having to worry with that, I use just a carabiner.
Yeah.
So I put the rope around, and I literally just carabiner
like that.
That. Just lock my carabiner down, and then that's hanging from the tree. When it comes to comfort, a lot of guys get discomfort because their setup's not right.
Yeah.
And there's really only two things that adjust your setup, and it's super freaking easy to figure out what the problem is. I lean instead of sit, like I talked earlier, so my tether, where it actually goes around the tree, is typically going to be a lot lower than somebody that sits.
Okay.
I like, as a leaner, I like my tether to be about nose height to the top of my lip.
Okay.
So that means that the rope's going from about nose high, angling down to my hips. So I'm pretty tight and close up to the tree. A lot of the sitters like to go a little higher, like top of the head. There's a guy that's affiliated with Arrow Hunter. His name is Bobby Boswell. I think his YouTube is under his full name. It's Boudreaux Boswell.
Okay.
And he likes it way up high. And the only other adjustment that really makes a big difference in comfort that a lot of guys can get is this bridge that I talked about earlier, and that's the piece of rope that goes from your left hip to your right hip.
Okay.
That you hook to that tether.
Okay.
So what that is we call that a bridge.
Okay.
Because it bridges your two hips.
Yep.
And supports the weight across the two. Instead of like a rock climbing harness, you'd hook in
the
right
middle?
above your gonads, and you'd have one connection. That's not very comfortable.
Yeah.
So what this does is that spreads the weight out to the outside of your hips, so that you don't get that tightness and pinch right in the inside of your legs, and it lets that support all the way across. And I know Tethered has a fixed length on that. So what they've done is out of all the guys on Saddle Hunter for years, everybody kind of talked about bridge lengths, and they kind of figured out what the average is for most people.
Yeah.
And then went with that. Arrow Hunter just came out with a webbing bridge for their newest one that's got like a slide buckle where you can't fix it on the fly in the air.
Is that the micro adjuster?
Kind of like a micro, the micro adjusters are actually around the legs.
Oh, okay.
So it'll come up from behind you, it'll hook, and then you'll bring it through the legs like a rock climbing harness and hook in the front. And what that does is that lets you Those straps right there will let you pull a little bit there, and then tethered's micro adjusters are on the outside of your leg right here.
Okay.
So like I guess if you're standing where your arm rests against your leg is where that is, and what that does is it pulls the back of the saddle up so that it like cups you a little bit better.
Okay.
And that's what Arrow Hunter did with the Flex. They have the original Kestrel, and the Flex now will open up about another 3.5-4 inches.
Okay.
And it creates more of a bowl shape to sit in. Some of the bigger guys were having problems, or if you're like in between size, they were having problems with either the saddle wanting to come down into their legs or wanting to ride up in their back.
Okay.
And that cup kind of holds them a little bit better.
Okay.
Like say somebody was a 1 and really kind of fit more into like a 1.5, but they don't make hat sizes, so they kind of went with a 1 because they didn't want to go big. Or if they went with a 2 and they really were kind of an in between, that flex lets them, cover the half sizes and quarter sizes comfortably with 1 unit.
Okay.
But tether height, play with that. Do it up top of your head, do it at your nose, do it 6 inches above your head. Some guys literally reach up as high as they can reach if they really do no leaning and they just sit straight down in the saddle.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one by far. And then play with the bridge length. If you're feeling a little pinch on your hips and you've adjusted up and down on your tether, maybe stick a second rope on there with some carabiners at a different length and see if that fixes it.
Okay.
Because it's super easy to make a bridge out of rope. I mean, I can use a lineman's belt for my bridge if I want to. Those are the two biggest things. If you spend a little bit of time adjusting that tether height, you're probably going to find it within, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 adjustments. Most guys could easily find it. So sit for 5 or 6 minutes, get somewhere where you can listen to music or watch TV from a pole. Some guys use the pole in the backyard of the fence.
Yeah.
And then just find the height that's comfortable.
Yeah. So the last question I have for you is, how do you pee out of 1? Do you pee out of 1?
I just let it fly, man.
Yeah.
I told y'all I play the wind.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it hard? Is it difficult to get the arc?
It's not difficult to get the arc because with my tethered or with my saddle not having the leg straps.
Okay.
Which leg straps aren't required on the Mantis either. I think they are built into all versions of the Arrow Hunter.
Okay.
Without leg straps, it's really easy to pee.
Yeah.
You can unclip the leg straps in most brands. I think only the original Kestrel doesn't have the removable clips. I think you have to step through on those.
Yeah.
So that one may be a little bit harder to pee out of.
Yeah.
But even in a tree, like I can really twist.
Yeah.
Pull a little bit of extra line out of that tether and make it a little longer than it would be, and I can really twist and just pee off to the side.
I have trouble making it longer.
Yeah. That's. I mean, you can only go so far, and then it's just painful.
Yeah.
Exactly. I will say though, code browns are a little bit more difficult.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's get down.
Yeah.
Oh.
I had a code brown in this one 2 years ago. And I got everything. I slid it. What I did is I basically loosened up my waist belt, slid it to my back.
And leaned back?
Probably the best poop you've ever had in your life.
No, not at all, man.
It seems natural.
Yeah.
Just hanging there.
Yeah. That was a Taco Bell was a mistake.
Oh, yeah. It's like, shit.
Yep. Oh, yeah. That's.
I've lost some sleeves that way, but I get down.
Peeing's super easy out of it, though.
I
told you I've done several dawn to dusks every year.
Well, I mean, that's
out of this tiny little thing.
Yeah, that's
not even. I mean, all the saddles on the market are Cadillacs compared to what I'm hanging in.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested to give one a try and give it a go. And
Greg's a lot better at explaining this than I am, so he's going to sell.
No, you were pretty good, man. I like getting your perspective, because that was the thing we were going to talk to Greg, but I was like, man, I really want to get somebody who's not
selling them.
Selling one.
I'll tell you what.
Not that he would do that, but
I haven't met out of all the guys, because almost all of them started in Saddle Hunter. Like before Saddle Hunter existed, they were all just kind of spread out on all the different hunting forums, or they didn't even talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And they just kind of came across a trophy line on the shelf somewhere a long time ago and gave it a try. But almost the whole industry at this point is still small enough that I've had personal conversations with every one of them.
Yeah.
I've camped and hunted with probably every one of them right now.
Yeah.
Not the Wild Edge guys. I haven't met them. They were primarily the climbing platform. They're just kind of starting to transition climbing platform works perfect as far as their brand for saddle hunters, and they've really wholly adopted and moved into saddle hunting. They love it. That's all they do now. But I haven't met them. But everybody else they're passionate for a reason. They're not.
Yeah.
They didn't get into this to make any money. In fact, Greg and Ernie, they don't like telling the story, but they literally sat around the fire 2 years ago at Saddlepalooza, and
There's a Saddlepalooza.
yeah, yeah. Greg puts it on down in Georgia at the military base that lives nearby, and it's always on President's Day because it's a federal holiday.
Okay.
And almost all the bases open typically.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes like 120,000 acres to hunt on, and everybody just goes down and tries to slay pigs.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It's real fun. And it really is. Even if you don't hunt, period.
Yeah.
It's worth it to go hang out because everybody's freaking cool and everybody's showing all of their climbing methods and all of their DIY projects and everything. In fact, they spend like 6 or 7 hours one day just showing, like, everybody that's got a climbing method that's not already represented just sets their shit up and shows people.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
But Greg and Ernie literally sat around the fire, and their sole concern was selling enough that they could at least break even and not have to out of pocket buy 30 of these things.
Yeah.
And end up holding the bag, and nobody wanted them.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't get into this to make money.
I mean, he seems like a nice dude from just reaching out, right? That's all. I have no affiliation. I have no. I just was like, hey, I'd like to have you on my podcast, and he was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and so
they're good guys. There's obviously when you get a brand new industry and you've got some people that were there first, there's a little bit of rubbing shoulders as the market kind of finds. Mm-hmm. So there's been, some spats here and there, but everybody's, close enough that you kind of get over it.
That's just business.
It is. Especially in a business that didn't exist, and then all of a sudden there's 3-4 major players in a year and a half.
Yeah.
I've noticed it's come up in like back conversations a little bit where like you're hearing more and more. It's been slowly ramping up to where all of a sudden it's like, all right, it's the thing now. Yeah.
And I think it's a thing because a lot of people are moving away from needing the TMA certification, Tree Manufacturers Association, whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think it's that big. Right now, everything's direct to consumer, so they don't need Bass Pro to be willing to put it on their shelves to sell something.
Yeah.
No.
And they can get you the information immediately on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it really was poised to do it because nobody wanted to touch it liability wise.
Oh, I mean,
because they didn't understand how to classify it or how it could be safe.
Yeah.
Everybody can look at a climbing harness, and nobody has a problem knowing that the climbing harness.
It's like a seatbelt for a tree stand.
Right. Nobody has a problem looking at a modern day climbing harness.
Yeah.
But a climbing harness literally couldn't pass TMA certification.
Yeah.
Hunter Safety Security Systems, whatever HSS stands for, they literally will not pass a rock climbing harness. And that sucker literally can hold a bus.
Yeah.
But it's because the construct was built around physical stands.
Yeah.
And shoulders and over the back.
Yeah.
Tie-in points. And you hear a story every year. Start looking. Every year, sometime in the season, you're going to see a story of somebody that fell and their HSS system held them and they couldn't get back in the tree.
Yep.
And they hung there for 2 days.
Yeah. That's terrifying to me.
And that's not possible in my saddle because number one, I'm not going to fall 5 feet before it catches me or however long that big long tether is.
Yeah.
That's a lot of shock load.
Yeah.
And number two, I'm facing my climbing method the moment it catches me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
I remember my wife asked me what the pull out on my harness was for, and I was like, well, that's when you fall and you're dangling there, you can let that out and stand on it so you don't lose your legs. Hopefully, after a few hours.
Well, I mean, there was this last season. I can't remember what state. There's an old man, 80s or 90s, that almost passed. Like they found him in critical condition, and his harness did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean,
but by its design, it points him away from the tree, and he may not be anywhere near his climbing method.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I just like.
Well, then, do you want to fall that distance and then hit your climbing method too? I mean, like,
right, but that's the whole thing with a saddle. You don't fall that distance.
That's what I mean. Like,
so a traditional safety harness is designed to stop a fall. The saddle hunting systems are designed to keep you from falling.
Yeah.
And that's two entirely different lines of thought.
Exactly. Like you said, you just kind of swing, and I mean, you're gonna hit the tree, and it's gonna suck, but.
Well, I mean, Literally, I went knuckles first, and
Yeah.
I had 4 knuckles with some torn up meat on them.
Yeah.
And it didn't go past the knuckles
Yeah.
themselves. The rest of the hands were fine. I didn't
Yeah.
break anything. I went knuckles first into a tree and didn't
Yeah.
break anything. And it literally, the way I climbed 2 years prior, I'd been grievously injured.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like it's one of those things like a motorcycle. It's only a matter of time. You're gonna have a story about falling. You're gonna have something not
Absolutely.
work. And so I don't know. My confidence in them has increased markedly just from watching YouTube, from seeing guys hang upside down in them,
Yeah.
and just how they're like, this is not what you think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you feel more confident, I think, on the outside with all of that from like what I have when I go up in a tree stand, just because you naturally feel like you have more on you, but you really don't.
It makes sense to trust a physical structure.
Yeah.
Psychologically, of course, we
Yeah.
believe in
Yeah,
this
exactly.
metal
This
stand
is like
that we're standing on.
Yeah, and it's this webbing. I have this like whole body suit on, right?
Yeah.
And so
Except that they're not made very well.
and then it's
And the
definitely-
stitchings literally only hold once.
Yeah.
And they got to get thrown away. These saddles are designed to hold thousands
Yeah.
of pounds and take shock loads.
Yeah.
And you're never going to put a saddle through its paces, not a commercially. Like you do some DIY sketch stuff like I'm doing, and you
Yeah.
don't research stitching patterns and methods and stitches and all that. You get yourself in some trouble.
That's a wormhole in itself, I'd imagine.
Right,
Just
yeah.
Stitching.
But honestly,
Yeah.
if I had started getting into saddle hunting right now, I'd have never
Yeah,
gone
done
DIY.
this. Yeah.
I have this DIY saddle because saddles weren't commercially sold
Yeah, you
anymore.
weren't. Yeah.
You were paying $500 for a used trophy lawn on eBay
Oh wow.
and hoping you win the bid.
Yeah.
It was very hard to get into, so we made everything, and that's the only reason I have it because the stitching's still good on it, and I haven't found a justification. Kayak's a higher priority right now.
Yeah.
I think all my hunting buddies are tired of me bumming a kayak or canoe off of them.
$300.
No.
Yeah. Not a kayak.
Don't
a canoe.
listen. Oh.
A canoe.
I was gonna say, don't listen to this guy on kayaks.
My biggest problem with the canoe in our area is we
Or
have
John
we have
boats.
so many of those really steep cut banks.
Yeah.
So like you're standing on the water's edge with one foot. It's so steep your foot like is trying to break traction.
Yeah.
And then 3 feet away from that foot is 5 feet deep water.
Yeah. Yep.
So and I've spent enough time in kayaks and canoes and hybrids and sit
Yeah.
on tops. A canoe is not the most stable thing in and
No.
out. And you're gonna go in the water
Mm-hmm.
in a canoe in those creek styles. Now, if you've got a beach,
Abe knows, don't
or if
worry.
you've got a good smooth slope,
Yeah.
man, a canoe can't
Perfect.
be beat. They're light as heck. They're
Yeah.
easy to handle with one guy. They hold an absolute ton of weight. But we've got so many of those steep creek banks that you got to have something stable.
I got the John boat, and even that's a beating and a half
Yeah.
to get in and out of sometimes because I'm like, I've got to climb onto a tree, rotate around, get up, and shimmy up to get up stuff.
Yeah, my
but-
problem with that is storage. I just can't put a trailer anywhere.
Yeah, I don't have a trailer either.
What kind of mods do you look for on your kayak, if any at all? Or
So I'm looking for right now, I'm kind of debating on whether or not I'm going to buy one. I'm kind of looking at the Ascend 10T
Yeah.
because the older Ascends were more like kayak.
Yeah.
And that newest model that Cabela's has is flat decked. It's very similar to a kayak that if I had the money I'd buy. It's called a New Canoe Frontier.
Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
the new canoes.
And if y'all are into duck hunting, that is like the
Yeah.
best duck hunting kayak in the world.
Yeah.
They even have a blind that goes on top of it with
Yeah.
a spot for your dog to get in and out of.
wow.
Like
Yeah,
they're a bit heavy.
Yeah.
Like I'm in a Tacoma, which isn't a big truck, but I plan on putting a topper on it.
Yeah.
And they're like almost 70 pounds dry and empty.
Yeah.
And getting to the very top
Yeah.
of a truck by yourself in the middle of nowhere with 70 pounds, that's a little heavy for me. If I'm sticking it,
Yeah.
if the topper takes longer and I'm putting it in the bed of the pickup truck, that's no big deal at all.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of thinking on either that Ascend or doing a whole bunch of research on some guys that are building their own kayaks out of EPS foam
Okay.
and like layering it up and then doing, it's called the poor man's fiberglass,
Okay.
which is where you take like a fabric and tight bond to like the wood glue
Yeah.
and wood glue it in. And you take a really like high strength outdoor epoxy paint and paint over the top of it. If it gets ripped up, punctures in it, it doesn't matter. The foam doesn't take on water. It floats no matter what. Get a whole bunch of damage, take it home, peel the fabric off, cut the hole out, put new foam in it, glue it all back up, paint it again.
Seems pretty cool.
My biggest problem with that is the time. I mean, I don't know that I'm going
I-
to have enough time to put that together, and I think I might have to have a kayak before season this year.
Yeah.
I don't know what your skill sets are, but like I could probably do all the actual physical work. But like every time I have a project like that, I'm like, this would be awesome. I get together and it's like the ugliest thing ever, and it will not cut the water.
I think,
Yeah.
So if I'm doing that, what I'm
Worst
gonna
hole
do-
shape ever.
Yeah. If I'm doing that, one of my hunting buddies, Ken, has the 12-foot new canoe, and I think what I'm literally going to do is flip his canoe over and make a 10-foot version copy.
Yeah.
You know,
Just
I'm not selling it, so they can't sue me for it.
No.
And I already know it works. I mean, that's super freaking stable. You can stand
Yeah.
on one side of that kayak and it won't flip.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I already know that design works. So I think I'd just, for the bottom of it, just carbon copy that canoe system. And then on the top, just kind of do whatever I want. You know, I want a good flat deck for throwing a deer on and getting out of there.
Yeah.
You know, I want the ability to put a little motor on the back. I don't know if I want to do, I don't think I'm going to do an outboard just because.
Trolling motor.
Those little bitty outboards are ridiculously expensive. Like you
We
want a
know.
2.5 horse outboard,
We're well aware.
it's like $600.
Yeah, we are.
That's like as much as the kayak itself.
We are. So I recently moved from a kayak to a john boat, a 14-foot john boat, and we've been trying to get a boat motor on it, and I've tried to do every single.
See, but with a 14-foot, you can stick like a 5 horse,
Yeah.
and those drop in price significantly compared to a 2.5 horse
Yeah.
or a 2 horse.
It's just still a couple $100 that I'm
Yeah.
not willing to spend.
Yeah.
So
And
I've gone the route of I found one in a storage unit, and I'm having our mechanic buddy here try to work on it, and
It's not going very well.
it's not.
Yeah.
We made a lot of progress and then hit a wall.
We had to 3D print some stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have a guy I work with that's a huge 3D printing enthusiast, and like he just was like, I want to try it. Like we had to redo the starting gear, so he made that a couple times for us.
So
and it's holding up.
what material is he printing that out of? Is that
No clue.
The first one it didn't work very well. The second
Yeah.
one is badass.
Yeah, the second one was actually what he did was he took he printed another one out of whatever material he was using, and then he decided that he wanted to learn to mold,
so he cast that?
so he cast it out of
Yeah.
plastic, and the
Well, because-
second
yeah.
one was a cast, and it was worked.
A cast is going to be significantly stronger
Yeah.
than printing any day.
Yeah.
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 And he said because he doesn't have, like, you can get a 3D printer. He said a lot of it is the enclosure. Like, if you have a certain enclosure and, like, the heat control and all that stuff, you could do a lot better. But he said the higher grade plastics to print with, he was having problems with, like, he'd walk by it or, like, just the AC would kick on at the wrong time. And no matter what he tried, there was always, like, something would cool it off just right, and it would make like a weird
Weak spot.
Yeah.
spot
Yeah, because if
and
it
stuff.
cools too much before
Yeah.
that next layer comes in, they're not bonded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just sitting on each other.
So that's why he can't print the higher quality. But then so he cast the next one. It's working pretty good.
I mean,
And then we ran into a couple other problems though.
So y'all geek out on DIY more than I do then.
Oh my god! The amount of DIY shit I did in my I had a blue kayak that was
No, don't even-
$300.
Bing,
Like-
ding,
Did you do the
ding,
heat gun
ding.
and the plastic?
I
Yeah.
repaired it with a heat gun
Yep.
because I cracked it the hole and flipped into the lake and lost a bunch of
I've read
shit.
this so many times. I'm gonna get a beer.
I'll take one too.
One.
And so I put outriggers on it and lights and the whole 9 yards, and I mean I finally was like, I can't deal with this anymore. After I flipped, I just had no
Man.
confidence in it.
You hit cold water, and luckily
Yeah.
I haven't like gone.
I
all
didn't
the
even
way
hit
in.
cold water. I hit warm ass water. I was in a bathing suit. It was if I lost a cell phone, car keys, wallet, phone. I mean, a lot of shit, unfortunately. But I didn't hit cold water. But that is
So my hunting buddy Dave, and he's somebody to pay attention to. He's in this area. He's a stone cold killer. He lives in Wichita Falls. No, yeah, that's out west, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
On 82. Yeah, he's in Wichita Falls, and like hunts as far east as kind of maybe Texoma. And,
okay.
He's smarter than me. He doesn't hit LBJ anymore
Yeah.
because it's just slammed.
Yeah, I
But
tried.
he went in full under this last season or the season before, and it was in the 20s.
Oh.
Man.
And like he was pushing hypothermia by the time he got back in. Wind was ripping, white capping.
Oh yeah.
And that's when he decided he was done with his canoe.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
he had new canoe and some smaller kayaks and,
Yeah.
and some old town canoes and stuff. And he will not hit the water now essentially unless it's his new canoe,
Yeah.
Frontier.
Like
Because it's a tank.
Yeah.
They don't track real well. They're not super
fast.
but there's literally you can step into it and not worry about hitting center of gravity.
well, that's the thing about like you were talking about those banks that are cut so steep that it's just like, I mean,
And if it wasn't for that, I'd do, a 12-foot canoe
Yeah.
or a pirogue like they do in the swamps in
Yeah.
Louisiana.
Yeah.
Or like a plywood canoe or something
Yeah.
like that. But when you're stepping into 5 feet of water in the width of your step span,
yeah,
you got problems.
yeah. You're not going to be able to
Yeah.
deal with very much. It's just too difficult.
Yeah.
But getting some sort of boat has been a game changer for us getting on deer.
Man, it is I can't even explain to you how much of a big deal it is. I mean, it sounds like y'all have done quite a bit of it,
Yeah.
but it's just, you can pattern deer completely different because they
Yeah.
expect people to come in from certain areas because
Yeah.
they've always come in from certain areas.
Yeah.
And it's not like they can expect you to come in from water because typically when you have water access, it's a massive amount of area that you could decide to beach at.
Yeah.
So it's like they're not just going to get to the point where they expect people coming from everywhere. Mm-hmm. So you can really get into some areas where they don't act like public land deer anymore.
Yeah.
Because you're rolling into the backside of their bedroom.
Yeah. And they're like, whoa,
Yeah.
nobody comes that way.
Right. It's like, why,
Yeah.
that opening day I was telling you about that I think before we started recording. Oh, yeah. Snuck out. Didn't expect to be hunting. And literally just kayaked into a spot that I hadn't been into in a few years and thought might be good. And I think I rolled in around noon, got into the tree around noon. And I had a group of does and 2 sounders of pigs up on their feet at 12:45 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it was nothing. I've never, ever,
Yeah.
until I started getting water access, seen public land deer on their feet at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
comfortable.
Right.
I've
Just
seen them
hanging out.
pushed.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen them bumped. I've seen, repositioning because a whole bunch of guys are coming out of the woods. I've never seen them up on their feet just comfortably browsing through an area
Yeah.
at 1 o'clock in the afternoon until I started getting on the water.
Will you start seeing your limits of like, or is there even a limit that you wouldn't be willing to try? Like, let's say you're doing your e-scouting, Google Earth, like you're saying, here's my put-in point. How far up the creek am I willing to go to get there in a reasonable amount of time and fatigue?
So it depends on what you're in. If I'm in a canoe, or like sometimes I borrow a little sit inside kayak.
Yeah.
It's like a little 8.5, 9 footer.
Yeah.
Just
Doesn't track like maybe
man, you'll spin
like
circles
Yeah.
if you're not careful. But I
Yeah.
mean that sucker will move. I mean I draft that whole thing drafts probably 2 inches of water
Yeah.
with me, my bow, and a backpack.
Yeah.
I mean there's times that I can reach in and the water's not even as deep as my fingers.
Yeah.
Like it's not even up to my palms, and that kayak will go across it.
Nice.
So that's my like scouting kayak.
Yeah.
It's my stepmom's and I steal it from her sometimes. So on that one, I'll push it a long ways. And I just carry like a little inflatable raft
Yeah.
shoved in the back of that thing. So if I get something down, I can strap them to it.
Yeah.
If I'm in a regular canoe, I think my limit's probably around 3 miles. If I'm in the new canoe, probably 2 miles.
Yeah.
But you get any kind of motor on that, and you can push that to 6 or 7. I mean, even a trolling motor will push one of those kayaks for frickin' ever.
Yeah. I mean, that's all we have on the John boat right now is a trolling motor, 50-pound thrust trolling motor, and
Yeah, and it's not a matter of how good the trolling motor is. Don't skimp on the battery.
oh, that's exactly.
sure.
Get a good
Learned the hard way.
yeah. I mean,
We paddled, so I got like the Harbor Freight battery
Oh.
first,
Oh.
and was like, "This will run," and sure enough, we got probably a mile. We got out there fine, and then on the way back, we were like, I don't think we're gonna make it."
well, and I will go further against the wind
Yeah.
to start the day than I will with it.
Yeah.
Because I know after a day of hunting and possibly dragging a deer out, I'm going to be coming back against the wind if I'm starting the day with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you hunt the backs of a lot of these lakes, and sometimes they're big,
Yeah.
and you get into white caps and swells are a problem.
Woo.
You know.
Been there. Water coming over the front of the boat with
Yeah.
3 of us in it.
And that's
Oh my
another,
God, we got to turn back.
Yeah.
We got to turn back, boys. We're turning back.
I mean, that's another thing. You get in a canoe in 3-foot swells or white caps,
Yeah.
and you catch one quartering on,
And
you're
you're
going
done.
over.
Yeah.
John boat or one of those flat top hybrid kayaks.
Yeah.
You're not going to go over. You're going to get wet, but you're not going to go over.
He got soaking wet. Thankfully, it was like October, so it was 95 degrees outside still. But we had to go probably a mile out of the way because I couldn't turn into it because the wind was. There's 3 of us in there, and it was like, man, that's too sketchy. So we went straight into it for way out of the way. We're trying to go this way, and ended up going, that way, and then hugged the shoreline up. And
Yeah, so there's a lot of times that point to point it may only be mile and a quarter, but I do 3 miles of kayaking to get to it.
Yeah,
because you can't fight those big headwinds in the middle of the lake.
you got to go up and around.
Yeah, I've crossed Lake Texoma once or twice,
Whew.
literally across it.
That's
Put in at 377 and cross the lake to the Oklahoma side in Hunt, Oklahoma,
Oh wow.
just because it was the best access point.
Yeah. That's a
Especially-
lot.
especially in all these floods and everything. A lot of those roads you
yeah.
can't get into.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest problem with water access. I lost most of October this year.
Because of all the
'Cause-
rain.
I mean, there were points where the road was flooded out a mile and a half before the parking lot.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's one thing that was very humbling this year. Is I had a lot of prep work, a lot of years in areas that I was starting to get comfortable, and I knew where decent deer were. And then all of a sudden, there's not a dry spot of ground for 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah. And it changes everything.
Right, and then it literally pushed them completely off
Yeah.
the public land and onto private. So now I ended up hitting 2 properties blind that I'd never seen.
Yeah.
Ended up having really, really close opportunities that I just didn't connect with. Your 9 point up there was one of them I was telling you earlier
Yep.
about. Had one like that. What do you think that is? 120s?
Yeah. Yeah.
120,
right on.
125. And it had an opportunity to get out of my comfort zone on the ground, in the bottom of this massive creek, and he was dogging a doe, chasing up and down, 25 minutes within 60 yards of me, and I just never could get a shot.
Wow.
That's a fun experience. I think
Yeah.
that's what got me the most addicted. That was so fun. That was early. That was early December. But I'd thrown a couple of ground sits before that. But that's when I started doubling down on ground sits because I had so much adrenaline after 25 minutes.
Yeah, you're
as
just
soon
like,
as it was
"Holy
over,
crap."
I got the shakes.
Yeah.
Just
I love that PVC pipe idea. I definitely want to start bringing that with me.
Yeah.
I stole that one from Dave.
Yeah, that's one we will steal from you.
It really is. It's one of those. Why didn't
And
I
the
think
cycle
of that?
continues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's and all you do is you set it up in a spot where you've got gaps between them, so you're going to have your little shooting lanes.
Yeah.
But it gives you a spot to draw.
Yeah.
And put some of them a full draw length out, put some of them up closer.
Yeah.
Because with that, the biggest thing is they catch a lot
Yeah.
on depth of field.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think of that.
Yeah.
That's why those burlap canvas stretching
Yeah.
across for a ground blind doesn't work. That's why if you stick a pop-up somewhere, it freaks them out. I don't care how good we think
Yeah,
it
it looks-
looks. To them, they don't see the same color depth that we see, so a lot of the detail that we print on those fabrics
Is useless.
still come out as a homogeneous
Yeah.
blob.
Yeah.
And that's not natural. There's never anything that's one-dimensional like that in nature.
Yeah.
Everything always has texture. And that lets you break that texture up while keeping, giving yourself in the middle of nowhere a spot to draw.
Yeah.
Because you got a big old pile of limbs or
Something.
grass or cattails or something
Yeah.
shoved in that PVC pipe. Gives you a spot to draw that he can't see.
Yeah. Wow. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
It will get used.
Yeah.
So we'll give you credit if we shoot a deer.
Don't give me credit. David Toms.
David
T.
Toms. Oh, David Toms. He's from Texas here, right?
Yeah, that's the one that's in Wichita Falls.
Yeah.
He's former Air Force. He's good.
Yeah.
He
I
had
I nerded out on his YouTube channel
Yeah.
for a while, and it's just like, damn.
he had a
this
mediocre
guy's
season this last year. He got a decent buck right off the start, like 3rd week of October, right as the rut hit. And then he went in after he had this massive 10 point he was after.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting this really cool buck that had like a jacked up side. It wasn't a real big buck,
Yeah.
but lots of
Lots of
character.
character. Yeah.
Him and I hunted together for a few days up in one of the Oklahoma WMAs, going in blind. And he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
A few years ago, he got between Texas, Oklahoma, and then he went up to Ohio for a hunt for a few days. He got 3 bucks in the 120 plus on public land
Wow.
Shit.
in one season.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
So him,
quite an accomplishment.
yeah, I find it interesting. I'm about 20 years younger than both of my hunting buddies,
Yeah.
and they could both hunt me under the water.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're pushing me.
Yeah.
They're good.
Well, that's, I think, the thing you got to do is you got to get with people who will push you and go with you, even if you're pushing them. But if they'll be a shotgun.
No,
rider
they're
for
both
you.
still in good enough physical condition they can outpace
Yeah.
me too. So I'd love to have seen how hardcore they were in their
Yeah.
early 30s, late 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Killing it.
yes.
Gives you something to strive for.
Yep.
So. Well, man, I can't thank you enough once again for joining us, and we'll have to get you back on after the season or as you're doing scouting and
See how much of a letdown I've been.
well,
Don't worry, most people know that from us already.
yeah,
Well, I don't have an October at all this year.
yeah,
My wife and I are doing a anniversary trip that's eating up first half of October, and I'm going to be working the second half to make up for it. So
Yep.
November.
I got about 2.5 weeks in November to get it done, and that's it.
Oh,
It's my whole season this year.
Yeah. It's a good time to be in there, though.
It is.
It's
Yeah,
about-
there's a reason I moved my vacation there.
yeah. You're like, okay,
Yep.
But it's 2.5 straight weeks. So
That'd be
however
amazing.
much I can get as far as, honey-do list done and get some equity in with the wife.
and just be like, here's
Yeah.
the deal.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be gone.
Yeah, burned every single
Yeah.
day of vacation in 2.5 week
Yeah.
time span. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Don't expect much out of me.
Hey, I don't blame you. It's what you got to do. What you got to do. Rutcation, right?
That's right.
That's what you did
Rutcation-
last year.
I'm doing Rutcation 2019. I actually moved
Yeah.
my dates this year because last year it seemed like the first week of November wasn't quite it, but I've changed it to like that November 11th to the 16th or whatever that week is. So I'm excited. Yeah.
That's like peak.
Mhm.
You said you're hunting further east, so I don't know what it is out there, but
Yeah.
up around here, Red River Corridor around here, that's like dead center and
Yeah.
peak breeding time.
Yeah,
That's
it's like-
another thing. Talk to your wildlife biologists.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those guys have all kinds of information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we befriended a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
We've had Chris on the podcast, I think 8 times. Hey, man, we have you on the podcast again.
Yeah.
So,
When's Rut coming?
when's the rut? What's the deal? Where's the state of Texas hiding all those deer at?
That's right.
You have any chained up out there? Well, we appreciate you
Well, thank y'all so much.
coming onto the podcast, and
Yeah, that's only made me wanted to saddle even more.
yeah,
Fantastic.
know.
I knew it wasn't going to go the opposite way.
Now you're going to throw Greg in there at the afterwards.
Yeah.
You're going to be
We'll talk to Greg here
y'all are
pretty
sold.
soon.
You don't even know.
Yeah, and like you're gonna see a couple. You've got some new saddle hunter recruits for sure. So
I mean, at the very least, just pick it up as a tool
yeah,
and let it evolve as you evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm totally going to go check out the saddle. What is it? Saddlehunter.com?
Uh-huh.
saddlehunter.com.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's I think Red Squirrel's the handle of the guy that owns it. I think he's had that site up for like 9 years now.
Wow.
So there's a lot of, or maybe 8. So there's a lot of stuff in the archives. It's not like actively going on in the threads that you can
Yeah.
search in the search bar. If you have a question, like it's in there.
Rock on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely check it out.
absolutely.
Oh.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media to track our adventures with saddle hunting.
Like everything. Review.
Review,
Please.
review.
Follow. Subscribe. All that stuff.
Exactly. Well, thanks for
Got
listening, guys. Peace.